If any normal person had that accident, they'd be off work for the next month, including me. I don't think I'd go back to work. Unbelievable. Rico Salmella just picking the bike up.
Yeah. Where was I?
Carrying on, exactly. He probably doesn't even realise he crashed. He was straight back on. So, big one for Rico. He's down there in 10th in his session at the moment. That would put him, where would that put him? 24th on the grid. Yes.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark anyway. Certainly not where he needs to be.
We really need the graphic to tell us where these 5th down would qualify if things stay the same. But that's just a suggestion, guys. Don't worry about it. 6 minutes or so on the clock. The 66 of Kelso making his way down to Brooklands.
If in doubt, add 14 to their position on the left-hand side of your screens. Top
Smart
4, of course,
thinking.
straight through into qualifying 2 to join the 14 that are already there in Q2. 6 minutes remaining then at the moment. It is Hakeem Danish who is in position A on a 2:10.448. That is within a tenth of a second of his best lap time of the weekend. Kelso in second. They're both looking in a pretty comfortable position, you have to say, at this stage in the 2:10s, with Buchanan third. And you'd have to say, if the session ends now, David Gonzalez will have done his long-term reputation no harm at all with a place in Q2.
Fantastic stuff on his debut. David Gonzalez, who's never seen this place before, and we was just saying how hard it is to learn. David Gonzalez, well, he's definitely looking very, very strong indeed at the moment. This is Hakeem Danish. This is Guido Pini just speaking there with Bruno Corricini, his data analyst, as he sits back down in his box. Guido Pini, where are you? 6th in this session. Again, Pini just not getting down to business when it matters in practice, and so often we see him down in this session in Q1. He didn't come through at all in Germany. It was his worst qualifying, I think, ever. Last time out, 23rd place. And really, he won't want to be repeating that. So Guido Pini's got a bit of work to do. We are less than 5 minutes from the checkered flag. Now, remember what I was saying about how long this outlap is? They're only going to get one crack at this, Lewis, because they're not going to be getting around in less than 2 minutes 30, which is what you need to be doing. This slot may well, but I think it's still a bit of an arse to get around and get 2 spare laps flying in at the end.
Yeah, certainly, because they're not exactly hurrying out of pit lane here, are they, with Rios leading the way. Rios has to get on a hurry on because he's down in 5th place at the moment. This is Danish on the 13, who's not prepared to rest on his 2:10.4 and assume he's through to Q2. He's going to go out and defend that position. That is Singapong, the 85 debutant, the Thai rider, who is from a city, Chantaburi, in Eastern Thailand. known as the Gem City. So hopefully they discovered a hidden gem that will be on the Moto 3 grid full time.
No pressure to live up to the name of that then, Kiatisaka. Yet to set a lap time in this session. He has been out though, so Singapong going to be leaving it late to get one thrown in. Talking of leaving it late, Guido Pini. Guido Pini looks like he actually wants to get a hurry up here. It looks like he wants to go out, but I wonder if they're just trying to feed him in, so he has a bit of a marker. But the number 94, who usually drive Pines, is not driving anything at the moment. He's stuck in the box.
He's driving his team up the wall, I think, at the moment. Unfortunately, with his recent performances, hasn't been on the front 2 rows of the grid since that Austin weekend, which we all thought at the time was going to be a major springboard for Guido Pini. Unfortunately, it has not been the case. We're awaiting him to head back out. Elle tells us from pit lane that Rico Salmella is on his way back out, so clearly only cosmetic damage to his KTM.
Very good stuff indeed from Rico Salmella to not just keep the bike running, but to get it back into the pits, get it checked over, and now head back out. Back to this side of Guido Pini, who's heading out now with 3 minutes on the clock. He needs to be getting on with this. Oh, the tyre warmers are going back on as well. I think they're waiting for this slot, but if I was Guido, you can't wait for this slot. You've got to get out there. Just on Pini, if I can, for a moment, Lewis, his last top 10 in a GP, 6th place in Le Mans a long time ago. We're in August, that was in May.
Yeah, he said that he needs to try and work out what they're missing after the German Grand Prix. Well, he's clearly missing some pace and some confidence at the moment. That's Gonzalez on the 71 just ahead, leaving pit lane. This is Kelso diving at the inside of Bertelli. Bertelli's out of the top 4 at the moment. Kelso's already in it, but Kelso is clearly a rider in a hurry, searching out a low 2:10 or even a high 2:09. It's a 2:10.2. Bertelli does go to 3rd, even with the overtake put on him into the bell chicane by Kelso.
Great job by Joel Kelso. That'll put a smile right across the British run MLAV grid racing team. So big weekend for them. It's their home GP here this weekend at Silverstone, and Joel Kelso is looking, provisionally at least, to join his teammate Eddie O'Shea up in Q2. Batelli perhaps hampered there by Kelso, but did improve his time as well. He's third. The rider at risk is Cormac Buchanan. David Gonzalez, a 71 on the right hand side of the shot, now finds himself just nudged out, courtesy of Kelso's lap time and also Batelli's lap time there. So fifth for Gonzalez, but this big gaggle of riders all going to need to find a little bit of track to work their own lap times into.
Yeah, so that Batelli improvement has relegated Gonzalez out. That's Pini right in the way there in the background there as they went around Luffield. So I think Guido Pini's afternoon maybe that's get even worse. I think he's going to find himself on the wrong side of the stewards as a result of that. If you're on an out lap, it is upon you to make sure that you stay out of the way and you don't delay someone on a hot lap.
Let's see if he did hamper Rios or indeed Nicola Carrara. It was one of or both of the Riva Cold Snipers team machines that were looking to try and get ahead of Pini. Right, we're getting down to the final minute of this. These guys are just coming through Maggots and Beckett's now, and then they're going to flick it left through Chapel and then down the Hanger Straight where there's a massive opportunity for slipstream. Cormac Buchanan's carrying so much corner speed through this part of the circuit, it looks like Batelli is holding him up, but at least he's got a bit of slipstream here. Buchanan, as I said, rider at risk, but he is on an improved lap and just a quarter of a second off what Kelso was able to do a moment ago.
Yeah, Batelli took a sort of narrower line through Beckett's and it didn't look as if it helped him. You could see Buchanan got a run at him and was swarming all over the back of him. Kelso has jumped out of the way to make sure he doesn't delay anybody. Batelli a little wide this time through Stowe. Buchanan, as it stands, might well jump ahead of the Italian.
This would be brilliant to see Cormac Buchanan moving through into Q2 once again. Qualified 11th last time out. That's Leonardo Abruzzo getting Pini'd coming through Vale.
Well, so has got over the line at least.
They have indeed gone over the line. Buchanan improves his time, 2:10.6. So Pini is going to get a lap time, as is Abruzzo, as is David Gonzalez and Salmella. They were the guys that were a little bit late coming out of pit lane. But the thing is, Pini's now got Leo Ramersdorfer. Danish has gone into the 209s, and that is a cracking lap time, the first and only 209 of this session thus far. So Hakim Danish, I think we can safely say he is going to be through into Q2. So there are now 3 places available unless someone goes great guns on this one. Pini has cleared Leo Ramersdorfer, but how much time did it cost him through that first sector? He's half a second off, but at the moment that's not too bad.
I'm puzzled by the strategy there, because he's gone out on an out lap. He could have put himself absolutely anywhere to start his time lap, and he's put himself right in the middle of all this traffic. He was behind Ramersdorfer and just ahead of Carraro. He's on the left, but under that's a Rios at the inside of Gonzalez, who's trying to push himself for a hot lap, so he's not going to be jumping out of the way of Guido Pini.
The thing is, Pini, it wouldn't be bad if he was half a second off through the first section if he had clear road. He hasn't got any. So through Woodcut, and then he's coming through the second timing point. Where's Pini going to be here? He is still half a second off. So he's damage limitation all the way through this lap so far. Let's see what Pini's got. Gonzalez has been forced out by Rios. Rios needed to do that because Rios, likewise, like Pini, needs to get this lap in. Was that Matteo Batelli going a bit slow on the racing line? Oh, dearie me, that almost caught Jesus Rios by big surprise there. Coming through Maggots and Beckett's now. Big slipstream opportunity. Lewis down the Hanger Straight.
And also significantly, it's Batelli who's sitting 4th at the moment on a 2:10.947. So Matteo Batelli's rolled out, so he's in no position to defend that 4th place.
Pini 1.1 off. The gap is 1.2 from Batelli up to Danish. So if Pini's got a bit of slipstream, he gets under the 54 of Jesus Rios at Stowe. Pini, at the moment, he needed to make that move if he is to give himself a chance to sneak through anyone else on a lap. There are some personal bests, including Rico Salmella. This might not even be good enough for Pini, who's duking it out with Rico with Jesus Rios, who tells him to get out the way. This is not a race, this is qualifying. Well, Pini's not going to move through after that. Salmella, just moves into 5th place, not enough. Pini 8th, Rios goes 7th. Those two are going to be having some words. There will be some afters with this one between the 54 and the 94, but as you can see, a lot of hand waving going on. But Lewis, we say this so often, this is what happens when you leave it so late. You've got to force it to fit, and this is what the outcome can be. Take that.
Yeah, and I'm afraid Jesus Rios will just say to Guido Pini, who had to save that on his very lanky frame on his right knee, Rios will say to Pini, I'm sorry Guido, I was on a lap myself.
Exactly, he's got to go for it. Jesus Rios has got to go for it. It was a proper old Marco Melandri style block pass, set it up in one bit of the chicane and execute it in the next, but he had to go for it. Yeah, not many smiles down there in the Leopard Racing Camp, but they have got Adrian Fernandez coming up next, at least. Pini then will be 22nd on the grid, so he's improved from last time out in Germany, but that is only a consolation because it has been a dire weekend so far. Jesus Rios has been out qualified by David Gonzalez. That's not going to go down too well for the rider from Mabar. He's got work to do. Enrico Samuela was on a great lap time, as you pointed out, Lewis, but just wasn't enough in the end. Hakeem Danish on your screen. A Malaysian has done the job very, very well. Number 13 moves through. Britain represented in team at least by Australia's Joel Kelso. Michael Laverty will be smiling about that. He's joined by fellow Antipodean Cormac Buchanan. Cracking job by the New Zealander there in third. And Matteo Bertelli, who was dawdling, let's say, going into Maggots and Beckett's, but was he off the racing line enough? Well, we'll have to have another look at it. Provisionally, he's in fourth, Lewis.
Back-to-back Q2 appearances once again for Cormac Buchanan. He had a back-to-back Q2 appearances in Mugello and Balaton Park earlier on in the season, and yeah, it might have taken a little longer than he'd hoped for the Kiwi to start making strides forward, but we are now starting to see those strides for the number 14. Good to see.
Yeah, great to see, and he was in the points here last year as well. It's obviously a circuit that the Kiwi like, so Buchanan moving through once again out of Q1 and into Q2. Other riders to just talk about if we can. We spoke about Pini and Rios, etc. Katsak Singapong, the very let's say fresh-faced Moto3 debutant. You'll be impressed with that himself and the Honda Team Asia machine, just getting ahead of Leonardo Abruzzo and likewise Leo Ramastor for her full-time rider and Nicola Carrara. But they all chase Hakeem Danish, who leads the charge into Q2. Yeah,
209.693 for Hakeem Danish. Only 4 riders have gone faster than that so far this weekend. He tops Q1 ahead of Joel Kelso, Cormac Buchanan and Matteo Bertelli, who might yet find himself in a little bit of trouble for not picking the best place to get out of the way on his final lap. Salmela 5th from David Gonzalez, who will make his debut tomorrow from 20th place on the grid. But it is Danish who moves through to Q2. The battle for pole is up next.
Welcome back to Moto3. The best facilities we come to all year, and definitely one of the best racetracks we come to all year. It is about as cloudy as it has been all week so far here in Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire. It has been beautiful weather-wise, and you can see that by the rather brown and dusty grass down there in pit lane. But the home of British motorsport, the home of the British MotoGP from 2010 until at least 2028, Silverstone welcomes two-wheeled action, and it's carrying on here on Sprint Saturday. You're in the company of myself, Kiko Giles, and Lewis Sudbury. Elliot York is down there patrolling in pit lane. But Moto3 Q1 is all done and dusted as we tick off another session between now and the Tissot Sprint coming up at 4 o'clock local time. The fans, normally when we see an umbrella in the grandstand, it's because it's raining, but it's too warm for a sun-soaked British crowd this weekend, who have all come to see some of the best racing they'll get all year. Qualifying 2 then, Valentin Peroni led practice yesterday, the first time since Catalonia that he has done so. Scott Ogden, Britain's Scott Ogden, doing the business at home. He's there in second. They are both joined by Veda Batama, Brian Uriarte, Casey O'Gorman, David Almanza, Max Keeles, Alvaro Carpe, Adrian Cruces, Joel Esteban, Eddie O'Shea, Marco Morelli, Adrian Fernandez and Ryusei Yamanaka. Those 14 are joined by Hakeem Danish, Joel Kelso, Cormac Buchanan and Matteo Bertelli. Those 4 were the graduates moving through from Q1 into Q2. I'll come to you in a moment, Lewis, if I can. Let's just head down to pit lane now with Elliot York. El, what treat have you got for us?
Yeah, cheers, Kiko. With Macaulay Webb, there's a British team in Moto3, now with 2 riders in Q2 as well after Joel Kelso's lap time there in Q1. Macaulay, I think you've just spoke to Joel. What did he say about conditions and how he's feeling heading into Q2?
Yeah, looking into Q2, you know, everyone in here is fast, so I think we'll just get amongst it and see what we can do. We found quite a bit of an improvement from this morning's session, so that's filling us full of confidence going into this Q2 session.
On the other side of the box, Eddie as well, busy weekend for him, of course, here at the British Grand Prix, but I'm sure he's enjoying it. How's he feeling? I spoke to him yesterday briefly. He said it was an eyes closed, just all-out lap in practice yesterday, so I guess there's a bit of nerves, but I'm sure excitement as well on Eddie's camp.
Yeah, you know, with the home GP, I think all riders naturally do get a little bit nervous, but you know, this weekend we're seeing a really mature Eddie, and this weekend it doesn't seem to be bothering him too much. I think, you know, the British crowds cheering him on and having his family in and out of the box, I think is really bringing him along. So yeah, it's great to have him here, do it well.
What are the realistic goals, Macaulay, for Q2? And then obviously, depending what happens in this session, will determine what the race goals are. But what are your expectations? First couple of rows, I guess?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, this weekend we probably haven't got the pace that we had in Mugello. But I would say the target is the front 3 rows. I think that's a realistic target, and that's the one that we're going to try and work towards.
Cheers, Macaulay. Good luck in this session, of course, for tomorrow as well.
Thank you very much. Speak soon.
Speak soon indeed, hopefully. Macaulay Webb, great to hear from you. Elliot York, likewise you as well. Let's see if Moto3's very own Team GB can come up with the goods here this afternoon. Lewis, this is going to be a tough challenge for them because this is a really tasty Q2. All your championship contenders, all of your Moto3 winners are right in the mix this weekend. It is going to be tasty coming up in the next 15 minutes or so in Q2.
Yeah, well, I think both of the Brits and, of course, both from within the British team can feel reasonably confident for this session because KTM and Honda look fairly evenly matched so far this weekend. Scott Ogden, of course, representing Britain, even if he rides for a French team. He was second quickest yesterday, and we had 2 Hondas inside the top 5 yesterday, Vader Pratama and birthday boy Casey O'Gorman. So clearly the Honda is going well around this fast and flowing Silverstone circuit, which will certainly boost the hopes of Kelso and home favourite Eddie O'Shea.
The fastest lap time came earlier on today, a 2:09.847. Sorry, the fastest time of today so far is a 2:09.847. The fastest time came yesterday, courtesy of Valentin Proni in practice, a 2:09.568. So let's just see whether we get down towards anything like that. I'm fairly sure we are, because these are your fastest riders, and we've already been in the 2:09s courtesy of Hakeem Danish a little bit earlier on. The all-time lap record is a 2:09.104. That was set by Alvaro Carpe here last year, so just keep an eye on exactly what we get to see coming up in the next 15 minutes. The green flag is on and Brian Uriarte is not. The team running up to perhaps
stole the bike, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. So maybe just a little bit of a helping hand, and rather ironically, the rest of the riders who were going to go out and follow Brian Uriarte have all come to a walking pace. Well, not even.
Yes, when you're ready, boys. So we've got a qualifying session to get up and running. I mean, there'll be some viewers, Moto3 historians, will be watching this session thinking, why do we bother with Moto3 qualifying around Silverstone? Because 2 of our last 3 winners of the British Grand Prix in this class, David Alonso in 2023 and Jose Antonio Rueda here last year, have won from the very back of the grid. So who needs qualifying, I guess some might be saying.
Exactly. You never know what we may well be seeing tomorrow. Who needs qualifying? Absolutely true, but it does help a little bit around here. Back, exactly. It would be a little bit of an arse to see 2 years running the rider at the very back of the grid to be making hay whilst the sun shines. But who knows what can happen here.
No pressure, Nicola Carraro, who's starting last.
I'm so glad you saved me there, because I was scrambling to think who on earth finished last in Q1, but Nicola Carraro it was, of course. Right, now we're getting down to the business end of this one, because they are rolling out. A bit of teamwork perhaps being done done by Keyless and Moradi. They'll probably, one will lead one round on the opening run, and the other will lead the other one round in the second one. Likewise for the CIP Green Power team. The CIP Green Power guys haven't scored points in the last 2 GPs, but they worked very, very well yesterday, Lewis, to be second and 11th overall going into today's session. So just keep an eye on Ogden and Cruces in this one, because they have got something up their sleeve.
Yeah, Ogden's been on the front row, of course, here before. Impressive for Cruces, you have to say, to get himself straight into Q2. First time he's seen this place, and the summer break came at a good time for him, given the painful ending he had to the German Grand Prix, and his thanks certainly went to Joel Esteban for avoiding him in the gravel trap. So Cruces up inside the top 10 yesterday on that CIP Green Power KTM, and of course many of the fans in the grandstands here will be watching the teammate to Cruces, the pink 19 of Yorkshire's Scott Ogden.
Yorkshire's Scott Ogden. Are you from Yorkshire by any chance, Lewis? Britain, Scott Ogden, of course, but he's from Doncaster, so both are true. Let's just see what Scoggers has got up his sleeve. I'd love to see Scott Ogden. He's had a front row round here before, hasn't he? So we know he can do it. We know he can live up to the pressure. He just needs to prove himself after what has been a really tricky last couple of rounds. Thinking back to Assen and then Germany, it didn't quite go Scott Ogden's way. As we have a look over, we are at looking at towards the Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel complex, the brand new Silverstone Escapades on the right hand side of that onboard. We were looking at Brian Ariarte, of course, who has been so fast of recent rounds, and he's looking to try and bag a pole position here at Silverstone. We haven't had many rookie winners here at Silverstone. David Alonso was the last by my calculations in 2023, and he did it the hard way, as we said earlier.
He did. Ariarte, top scoring rider in the last 5 Grand Prix, even more than Max Keyless, the runaway World Championship leader, and he has all the hallmarks of a rider, doesn't he? That once he starts winning, he's not going to stop winning very often. He's got that kind of air to him. Of course, a serial winner through the Junior GP and Red Bull Rookies programs, of which he is a champion in both.
3 out of the last 4 front rows have featured the number 51 as we take a trip down, not memory lane, but it is pit lane actually, on the approach to Vale.
It was a productive first 5 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was worth it, wasn't it? Well, we gave it a big build-up, and Max Keyless has decided to bail out. I wonder if he's looked over his shoulder to see that just about everyone wants to follow him. I can tell you this is not going to go down well with the asphalt. And setting the lap times on his own. That's what he does all the way through free practice and all the way through practice as well. He's quite happy to just use what he got. He doesn't need a slip shim, doesn't need a toe. Interesting to see, and not a surprise to see everyone straight back out of pit lane.
Max isn't my strong point, but by working this out, an out lap's going to take 2 minutes, a flying lap another 2, and then an in lap another 2. I'm not sure these riders are going to leave themselves much time to even do a second run after this.
I think it is going to be just one run, isn't it, Lewis? Because, well, it's going to be more than 2 minutes. I mean, the trip through pit lane's got to be 30 seconds. It might not look long on TV, but it is a lengthy pit lane here. So that's 2.5 minutes, say, on an out lap, maybe 2:40, and it's a 2:10 if you're pushing on reasonably quickly. So yeah, you're not going to get many laps out of this at all, which is pretty unsmart.
They're going to have to make a decision, I guess, those riders on their time lap. If they think the lap's not going to be much use, they're just going to have to bail at pit lane at the end of their first time lap. Otherwise, they may only get one run at it.
Well, Denisha's 2:11.2 and Yamanaka's 2:11.6 isn't going to be too much of a threat for pole position, I'm sure. Well, unless everyone else completely makes a mess of it. Vader Batava 2:11.2 as well, just 6,000 slower than Danish, but these guys are now going to really push on this second lap perhaps. I just wonder sometimes, the Aspar team, because this is not the first time where they really want to play the tactical game and they haven't yet got it right, Lewis.
No, they've tripped over their own shoelaces a few times this season, it has to be said, as good as they undoubtedly are. Of course, with Keyless, the runaway championship leader, and Marco Morelli 4th in the points at the moment, as Al Manson now approaches Vale. The CIP Green Power teammates working in tandem behind, as Cruces breaks ahead. of Ogden. Cruces is on a good lap at the moment, but Ogden is about 4/10 up on him.
Let's see what Almanza's got, because Almanza's the one who's most under the current lap time set by Denise. What is it from Almanza? 2:09.8. Okay, that's a bit more like it. Scoggers goes second on a 2:10.1. So Scott Ogden there in second and Cruces there in third. So for the moment, at least, Alan Bronner can smile down there in the CIP Green Power team, because it's second and third for his guys.
Joel Esteban just behind in terms of the track position and also in terms of grip position at the moment. Esteban in fourth place. He, like Casey O'Gorman, who I mentioned earlier on, had a birthday to celebrate yesterday. Joel Esteban turned 21 yesterday.
Birthdays all around. The cake business in this part of Buckinghamshire obviously doing very, very well indeed when MotoGP is in town. Keyless and Morelli have obviously put the hammer down on that last lap, because they've managed to just about break away from the pursuers. So Keyless and Morelli getting what they want, and that was to be left alone. Whilst we're in this lull, Yamanaka's 1.1 off at the moment and on a personal best, but this isn't going to be anything spectacular because he's going into pit lane, as are we. Elliot, take it away.
Yeah, no, just a quick update down here. You can see Kelso and Buchanan in pit lane. Obviously, others coming in right now. I know we've got New Zealand and Aussie fans tuning in. They went out on used rubber, of course. They were in Q1. They've pitted early doors for some fresh rubber, so we're going to see what they're made of in the last few minutes. They're just about to head out now, very shortly. Tactics-wise, not sure what they're going to do. Are they going to head out alone? Are they going to wait for the riders to come back into pit lane? Not sure, but that's the reason why those two were sat in pit lane a moment ago and still are.
Cheers for that, El, as we get Vader Patama across the line. Personal best that time around. He's now into the 2:10s, but still a little way off what we're used to seeing. David Almanza is going great guns here. He's just under half a second under his own time, so this would be down towards a 2:09.4, which is getting a little bit more like it as we see the 22 break for Stowe.
The Red Bull KTM IO pair decided to bail. They came up pit lane, both Uriarte and Carpe, which means that they'll go back out for their final run without a lap time next to their name. Keyless and Morelli are both on so-so laps, which would put them probably on the front row of the grid with Almanza and Ogden. It would be interesting to see if Keyless and Morelli decide to stay with their laps, or whether they decide that it's not good enough and we're better off just go back into pit lane for some fresh rubber. Almanza now into the mid-204s. That is the fastest lap of the weekend so far.
Yeah, 2:09.461. So very strong stuff indeed from Almanza, as you say. Fastest lap time of the weekend, and just a couple of tenths away from that lap record set by Carpe last year. What's Keyles's opening gambit going to be? What's Morelli's going to be? They're coming through Club now and down the straight. Keyless goes third on a 2:10.3, Morelli fifth on a 2:10.5. So they're there, they're in touch, and for an opening lap, that's not a bad one, but they're going to have to go again. And as you said, Lewis, it is one run only now.
So if they try and get back to pit lane, they're going to have to do a racing speed lap to get back up to pit lane. But as you pointed out, with the speed it takes to get up the pit lane, you're going to have next to no time to change tyres and get back out there. That was O'Shea getting caught up with O'Gorman into Village and the Loop. O'Shea's first lap has put him on the front of row 3 in 7th.
Casey O'Gorman at the moment is in 11th place as well, because I know we've got a lot of fans looking at Casey O'Gorman, the exciting Irish rookie. This is as close as he gets to it being a home GP, you could say. Matteo Bertelli's just duffing him up now. That's up in towards Brooklyn. So good stuff from Eddie O'Shea at the moment, up there in 7th place. As he comes down Luffield, he needs to clear Casey O'Gorman, who I don't think is really on a fast lap at all. But at the moment, O'Shea going pretty well in 7th. Best qualifying of this year was 6th by my reckoning over in Brno. So Eddie O'Shea knocking on the doors of what would be a career best, not just a year best.
Back with Keyless in Cops Corner then. Keyless, of course, second in this Grand Prix last year, behind the eventual champion Jose Antonio Rueda. He's got a massive gap to try and slot himself into, up behind Almanza, who is looking pretty comfortable at the moment, has to be said, on that 2:09.4. 3/4 of a second clear of the field as he chases what would be a 5th pole position of 2026, and there aren't many at the moment queuing up to try and depose it.
There are some big names here, Lewis, not with a lap time at the moment. I'm looking at Valentin Peroni, who was fastest yesterday. I'm looking at Brian Uriarte, who was fastest this morning, and your winner last time out, Alvaro Carpe, who started from pole here last year, courtesy of Jose Antonio Rueda, going to the back of the grid. Adrian Fernandez, of course, as well. Kelso has been brilliant in qualifying, not just this year, but here at Silverstone in years gone by, and Cormac Buchanan, we know, was already out on used tyres, as was Kelso. So those two are waiting, but for the rest of them, there's some big names names. There's some title contending names that haven't got a back. Oh, massive
huge crash.
Massive crash through turn 18, and that bike has taken a flyer, as has rider. Max Keeles was coming through club corner, turn 18, and he has landed right in front of our comms position here at Silverstone. That was an enormous crash for the number 28, your championship leader, by a 104-point margin. He's on the deck here at Silverstone, and he is being attended to right in front of our comms box. I can tell you he's moving, but the marshals are right with him. We may well be having a pause here because it is right as they ask for the power coming through turn 18 here at the end of this Silverstone lap. Max Keeles, well, he was chasing a lap time, he was on a personal best, and this is what's happened. He was a little bit wide at the first part of Vale. He's coming through, he's all the way on the angle here, and just as he comes through turn 18, asks for the power, and out the front door, Max Keeles takes a flyer here in the closing moments of Q2.
He is now up on his feet outside our commentary box window and now walking away from the scenes, to a bit too trigger happy on the throttle. He crosses the finish line before his bike does, and that is the end of Keeles' qualifying session, and he's holding his right arm there and his right wrist, which will certainly concern the Aspar team.
Jorge Martinez, Aspar watches on, your team boss and owner there in the 4 shots there. So really dramatic scenes for Max Keeles. It looked like he was holding his wrist there. Let's see, and maybe even his ribs as well. He took an absolute beating. Thankfully he didn't get caught up with the bike, because the bike was hurting towards the air fence as well. Wow, drama for your championship leader. Max Keeles third at the moment on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix as they all approach Stowe Corner. Less than 2 minutes. There were yellow flags for that, but I'm not sure anyone really benefited from it. Joel Esteban is up in 4th place at the moment, but these guys, when they come across the line, are going to be starting their final flying lap. Let's take Brian Uriarte across if we can. Half a second off at the moment with his opening flying lap. Here's Adrian Fernandez, who's got Cormac Buchanan, a hard-charging Cormac Buchanan, right up behind him. This is where Keeles went down. Uriarte across the line goes 5th, moving up into 2nd. Joel Kelso on the grid racing machine. Brilliant lap time from the 66. He came through Q1 and he's gone into P2.
Yeah, crucially, these riders all started that flying lap before Keeles had his crash, because of course if you start the lap with yellow flags waving, then it can also be deleted, but they were ahead of Keeles' crash, so those lap times, unless they've exceeded track limits, will be valid. Carpe's lap did exceed track limits, his is not valid, so he still doesn't have a lap time next to his name with a minute to go.
How many times have we seen Carpe need to do a World Superbike old style super pole lap here? It's all or nothing with 1 to go and less than a minute on the clock. We're counting down to the checkered flag here. On the brakes, down in towards Brooklands we go with Carpe. We're following round the MT Helmets MSI duo of Danish and Yamanaka. Danish is half a second off. He is not really in touch here. He'll be in touch for a front row provisionally, but that is only as it stands through the 3rd sector.
David Almanza is sat in the pits at the moment. He's watching it with the rest of us. I think perhaps just that was the strategy of the session for Almanza. It's not a sign of confidence, but at the moment it's Peroni and Ogden who might well still have something to say for Almanza's 2094.
We need to see Ogden, we need to see Peroni, we need to see Carpe, we need to see everybody here in Moto 3 Q2. Where do you look? Eyes on Spings up here in commentary. Down to the braking area of Vale. Danish, big moment on the front end. He goes wide to the first part of turn 16. Look at Scott Ogden, a 10th and a half up through the 3rd sector. We're going to bring Danish over the line now. Does Danish go to the front row? Oh, yes he does, by half a second. He's just off Almanza, but he's provisionally P2. Right then, Uriarte versus Fernandez, but we need to be at the back of shot. We need to be looking at Scott Ogden. Here he is, looking to go on to pole position here at Silverstone. What has he got left in a locker? Coming through 15. He's got a little bit of traffic, but hopefully they do not tangle with him. Scott Ogden is coming down into Vale. He is a 10th and a half under David Almanza's time at the moment. Through 17, this is 18. Go on, Ogden, go for it, boy. To the line. Pole! Britain on pole provisionally at the British GP, and that is going to get a massive round of applause in the box because Alan Bronek, CIP Green Power team are 1-2, but it's Scott Ogden who is on pole position. A fantastic final flying lap, and that is what the British fans came for. Cruz says 2nd, Valentin Peroni, a late charge to third, has bumped Almanza off the front row altogether. That is what happens when you sit out the final moments of Q2.
A second career pole for Scott Ogden, but to do it at the British Grand Prix, surely the best feeling he will have ever had in his Grand Prix career. It's a CIP 1-2, as you mentioned. Peroni's third, Almanza onto the second row and fourth, ahead of Carpe and Fernandez. We've got Uriarte seventh, Buchanan in eighth place. That will be an equal career best qualifying for the Kiwi, assuming no one relegates him down the order, and assuming Max Quiles is fit to start tomorrow's British Grand Prix, he'll be doing it from the fourth row.
Provisionally, because we got these two on laps yet as well. Patama, I mean, they're a little bit off, but O'Shea is a second off. O'Shea with a second off could put him around his teammate. It could bump Quiles back to 12th. Good to see that we see Quiles there just with his helmet off and walking, but we're down into Vale. What a qualifying session from Q1 through to Q2 and to the checkered flag. Eddie O'Shea, 15th at the moment. Is he going to be able to move through? Let's wait and see. Oh, he improves his time in opposition. We have got a British Grand Prix in Moto 3 shaping up to be a belter. A CIP Green Power 1-2 and Scott Ogden on pole with a 209.126, a new lap record, nearly a new lap record, but the fastest time of the weekend. Max Quiles is back on a bike, but it's not his own, and he is hurt.
Yeah, he is in a lot of pain there. His head bowed, I think, just to sort of hide the pain. A bit of a thumbs up there, but Quiles in a bit of pain. A wave to the crowd. Maybe they knew something when they scheduled the Moto3 race in the main event slot tomorrow after MotoGP. There will not be many British fans here heading home at the conclusion of the MotoGP race tomorrow. 2:30 local time tomorrow. Scott Ogden will lead the Moto3 field away from pole.
Oh, brilliant. He's going to be nervous for sure. We know that Scott Ogden is a little bit nervous on the grid, as they all are, but from pole at your home GP, brilliant. Not brilliant. Oh, dear me. Max Quiles, it's his right arm that goes down very, very hard, and look at that bike. He's very, very lucky not to get caught up with it. And then Visor instantly coming up, he bangs his head as well. Max Quiles, no wonder it took him a minute to get to his feet, so let's hope he's all right. This is from the onboard next to where the bike has been parked up. Very, very gingerly, that helmet was taken off, and he's still holding his right arm there as well. So Max Quiles is going to be going to the medical centre, I am fairly sure of that one, and let's hope it's nothing serious, there's nothing broken, and it is not as bad as first thoughts. But it is a first British rider to take a Moto3 pole at the British GP, courtesy of this one here, Scott Ogden, with that special British crash helmet in a donation, almost in a raise awareness almost of the British Heart Foundation. Well, he's won the hearts of many here this weekend at Silverstone. It is a CIP Green Power 1-2, and I know someone who's going to be very happy about that. Elle is with him. Or is he? Because I can't hear him. Is Alan Bronick down there with you, Elle?
It would appear the answer is no. He's probably fainted through the excitement of it all.
Literally speechless.
Not just a pole for Alan Bronick, but a 1-2 on the grid. Of course, a lot of the British support and the British interest will, of course, be on Scott Ogden for very good reason. But shout out to Adrian Cruzes too, who hadn't seen this Silverstone circuit before until yesterday, and it's a first front row start for the 19-year-old from Valencia.
Fantastic. Career best.
Turns 20 tomorrow, does Adrian Cruz says.
A very happy birthday. There could be some big celebrations down there in the CIP Green Power Hospitality. Not many of the Moto3 hospitalities are here. They are one of the teams that has bought their hospitality. Good job the baggers are on last for me later tomorrow. Sorry, good job. The Moto4 British Cup is on last for me tomorrow, Lewis, because I might well be heading that way.
Yeah, it's pure euphoria for Scott Ogden. You will take a long time, until literally 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, to wipe the smile off Scott Ogden's face. It has, of course, been an up-and-down campaign, an up-and-down Moto3 career for Scott Ogden, but this, surely, the highest of highs so far in his career. Savour the moment, because they don't come along very often, certainly not at home Grand Prix for Scott Ogden. a pole position and a Tissot watch that he will treasure for a long time.
A Brit, a Spaniard and an Argentinian on the front row. Valentin Peroni, a welcome return to the front row as well. His first front row since he qualified on pole back in Catalonia. He was 19th in the last 2 qualifying sessions. So Valentin Peroni is definitely back in business this weekend here at Silverstone. You see the special helmet there in to raise awareness with the British Heart Foundation there on the top of the Scott Ogden number 19 machine down there in Parc Fermé. So fantastic stuff from the young Brit, from Doncaster in Yorkshire, not a million miles away from here, but it doesn't matter. It is a home GP, and it's a home GP to remember so far. He has been flying all weekend.
Yeah, not a fluke that. Not a fluke at all for Scott Ogden. Second quickest yesterday when he was only 100th of a second away from Valentin Peroni, who also joins him on the front row of the grid. The Tech 3 KTM rider in the front of pictures. So, yeah, dare I say it, with a bit of a World Cup reference, that England and Argentina are going to lock horns again from the front row of the grid in Moto3 tomorrow.
Well, of course, we are going to have a proper old battle, aren't we? Just looking down, we focused a lot on the front row, haven't we, Lewis? Well, let's come to that in a moment, because I want to hear what Scott Ogden's got to say. Oh, what a job. Well done, Scoggers.
Scott, congratulations. What a last lap that was. To put it on pole in Moto3 is pretty special, but to put it on pole at your home Grand Prix is even more special. Just talk us through it and how you're feeling.
Yeah, it's mega. It's been a difficult year, difficult 5 years for me in World Championship, and yeah, the journey is more or less coming to an end now in Moto3. I haven't got so long left. I still don't know if I'm going to finish the year, but yeah, I've got to turn up every weekend, do my best. I'm super happy with this because I've put a lot of work in, a lot of work this year. Everybody at home supporting me. It's been super difficult, and yeah, I'm super happy. It's not, the job's not finished, but yeah, this one means a lot of relief off my shoulders, because it's been weighing on me a lot.
Great job and best of luck for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Please keep Scott Ogden in this paddock, not just for the rest of this year. Let's not dwell on that one, but going forward, because when he puts in a performance like this, it is fantastic. And as you said, Lewis, just while we were listening to Scott speak there, an 8th different pole sitter of the year. Moto3 is unpredictable as ever. The championship leader isn't even in the top 10.
And may not even start tomorrow. We certainly hope that he does, but clearly a trip to the medical centre first for Max Quiles. Scott Ogden on pole, a memorable CIP Green Power 1-2 with Adrian Cruz as a first front row for him. Valentin Peroni third, his third front row of the season. Almanza fourth, having sat out the closing stages. Carpe fifth, despite only getting that one last ditched attempt. Fernandez, then Oriate. Buchanan equals his career best in 8th. Ahead of Danish, who, like Buchanan, came through Q1. Kelso, Quiles after his heavy crash at Club 11th. Then came Yamanaka, Esteban and Morelli. Eddie O'Shea 15th, ahead of Fatama Batelli and Casey O'Gorman. Rico Salmela, one of the high-profile casualties in qualifying 1. He's 19th, ahead of David Gonzalez, who makes his debut from P20. Rios and Pini next up. They got stuck into each other during qualifying 1. Kiatisak Singapong 23rd for his debut tomorrow for Honda Team Asia. Abruzzo 24th as the replacement for Ruche Moonley. Leo Ramastorfer and Nicola Carraro starts last on the grid, which has won 2 of the last 3 British Grand Prix. Variety, the spice of life in Moto3. So what a feeling that must be for the British fans and for Scott Ogden. He is on pole position for the British Grand Prix. What drama awaits us next? Moto2 Q1 is on the way.
Moto3 has absolutely delivered the goods from a British perspective, and now we get ready to rock and roll with Moto2. You are joining us live as we start the second half of a mammoth 2026 MotoGP World Championship season. We're here at the home of British motorsport, the home of the British GP, and for a couple more years to come at least as well, Silverstone. And this place has just about seen everything as far as last lap battles are concerned. concerned, and also as far as home heroes are concerned, and that may well change as well tomorrow. We may well have some more history coming up right the way across all three classes. Moto 3 parked, done. Moto 2 coming up next, and featuring in Q1, Tony Arbolino leads the charge ahead of Angel Piqueras, Joe Roberts, Aaron Canet, Zonta van den Gurberg, Dennis Onju, Luca Lanetta. David Alonso is having a horror show of a weekend. He's in Q1 as well at a circuit he's never been off the podium at. Ayuma Sasaki, Jose Antonio Ueda, your Moto 3 winner from here last year, Taya Furusato, Adrian Huertas, Alberto Fernandez and Xavi Zuratuza. They are your runners and riders, the stars of the Q1 show, coming up next in Moto 2. You're in the company of myself, Kiko Giles. Lewis Sotheby is next to me and grabbing guests and interviews and insight and giving us his thoughts from down on the ground. Elliot York will be patrolling pit lane for what is going to be another belting qualifying session coming up in Moto 2. The fans are coming into Silverstone, and I reckon we've got a few more tickets sold after what we've just seen in Moto 3 for tomorrow. It is going to be a majestic day. Look at that, Silverstone filling up nicely as we edge closer to the MotoGP Tissot getting underway in just under an hour and a half now. 4 o'clock local time, 5 o'clock in Europe, and of course wherever you are joining us from around the world, adapt yourself accordingly because it is going to be a corker. Lewis, Moto 2, like in Moto 3, the main title contenders are all through already, besides one.
So far, so plenty for David Alonso to study there as he sat within the box. One thing, of course, at least he does know coming into this weekend is that he has that MotoGP contract in his pocket and announced to the rest of the world, of course, signed with the Honda factory for next season. Not confirmed yet which of the two Honda squads he'll be riding for, but he definitely will be part of Honda's MotoGP future.
First Colombian in MotoGP since Johnny Hernandez back in the day, who did lead a couple of races, I remember, in very tricky wet conditions. I'm not sure David Alonso, when he does get to grips with MotoGP machinery, is going to need the wet conditions. A very, very exciting prospect incoming when Alonso gets to MotoGP. Other names that are in this one that perhaps are a bit of a surprise. Joe Roberts is, well, depends on what weekend we find Joe Roberts, but he was up in the top 10 contention earlier on this morning, as was Angel Piqueras. Great morning this morning, but he finds himself down here in Q1. Tony Arbolino was the fastest rider who didn't make it through, and only 7,000ths of a second stopped him moving through. It was Colin Vire who took that place. So there's a few names in here that really ought to be in contention. Jose Antonio Ueda is another one, Lewis, who in recent rounds has been very, very good, getting into Q2 or even directly via practice, but 24th yesterday, not really cutting any kind of mustard.
Yeah, looking at those contenders in this Q1 session, for Roberts, it's the 6th time this year he's had to go through qualifying one. Joe Roberts fans, put your fingers in your ears. He's only gone through Q1 once of those 5 previous occasions. On 4 of those 5, he failed to navigate his way through. Taya Furusato, he's also in this Q1 session off the back of his best Moto 2 weekend so far, but he's already been on the floor once this weekend after colliding with Dennis Onchu yesterday morning.
Yeah, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think probably a little bit more blame being put on Dennis Onchu if we were to apportion any. This is Alberto Fernandez, but we'll come to all of these guys in a moment. We've got 15 minutes to talk about them and wax lyrical before we get down to business to see who the fastest 4 are. Let's get down to pit lane. Elliot York, who have you got?
Yeah, thanks guys. A little bit different to start the British Grand Prix. We've got Steve Sargent from Triumph. Steve, great to catch up with you midpoint of the season. Of course, how's the season been so far in Moto 2 for Triumph?
I think the racing's been amazing. I think, well, honestly, the last 2 years the racing has been amazing in Moto 2. Well, we had 6 race winners already this year. Lap records are still being broken. It amazes me that these guys every season come out and continue to go quicker. So yeah, it's been a great season.
We've got news during the last couple of weeks about the new high-powered engine that you're bringing in for potentially next year. Just talk to us a little bit about that and what can we expect as fans for the future in Moto 2?
Yeah, so it's an all-new engine for next year. So we've decided to move on again. We always said when we came into Moto 2, we didn't want to stay static in the championship. We wanted to keep challenging. So for next year, we've got a completely new engine, different capacity, 6% more power, more torque, and 2 kilos lighter. So yeah, quite a new package.
How much have you learned from coming into MotoGP since 2019 that has gone into developing this quite exciting sounding new engine for 2027 and beyond?
Yeah, well, you know, we've done nearly 2 million kilometres of racing now on the Triumph Moto2, so all of that data that we've collected has been built back into the engineering team, and they've used that really to develop the new engine.
Thank you, Steve, for catching us up. It's your home Grand Prix, I know, and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Steve. Cheers, El. 2 kilos lighter and 6% more torque. That is not my bio, for sure. No one wants more torque, and definitely I need more than 2 kilos to be lost. But great to hear from Steve Sargent. Great to see that Triumph, as Steve said, not staying static, not standing still, continuing that evolution of the 765. It's going to be slightly different capacity, as he says, as well, so more details will follow, but great to see the Moto2 getting the investment it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, pound for pound, you could argue Moto2 produces the best racing on the planet these days, with the variety and the entertainment we see, and that's down to the quality of the packages across, of course, the chassis suppliers, Boscoscuro, Calix and Forward, the, of course, Triumph power plants, and of course Pirelli supplying the tyres. And we've seen so much entertainment already this season. 6 different winners, 10 different podium finishes, 9 different pole sitters in this Moto2 season, and more drama to come here this weekend. Here's Jose Antonio Rueda on the 98, who of course came from the very back to win the Moto3 encounter here last season. He'll be hoping to start a little bit further towards the front and have a better view of the lights on his first Moto2 appearance here.
Well, just to see the lights would be an improvement from the back row of the grid where he was last year. Worth noting as well that if that was to happen in MotoGP at back row of the grid, it would be a little bit further back than what it was last year, because by virtue of the distance, of course, since we've had the Sachsenring, the rows are slightly more spaced out. This is Luca Lunetta, who was going great guns towards the summer holidays. He was picking up a few decent results here and there, and now finds himself at a very, very tricky Silverstone to learn if you are a rookie. He was a podium finisher here, though, in Moto3 last year, and it was the first time he'd ever seen the place, so obviously he gelled with it pretty quickly. Having said that, he was last this morning in FP2.
Did out-qualify his teammate Celestino Vietti for the first time in the Sachsenring, although perhaps that says more about Celestino than it does about Luca Lunetta, because Vietti had a miserable weekend at the Sachsenring. But yeah, this is such a tough circuit for newbies, for rookies to learn, even if you're moving up from Moto3 to Moto2, because it's such a vast venue, such wide open spaces. It's a momentum circuit where you really let these bikes go. You can unleash the maximum potential from them and really let them flow through these fast sweeping corners of Silverstone. So not an easy circuit to pick the right lines around it when you make a step up in machinery.
This is Rueda coming up in towards Stowe. I think Rueda's going to be the first one to get across the line and set something a little bit representative. I remind you that yesterday 2:02.852 was what Arbolino managed to set, which didn't get him through. The fastest lap time yesterday was a 2:01.815, and this morning it was a 2:02.2. So we are expecting to get down into the 2:01s a little bit later on. But right now, an opening lap of a 2:03.6 for Rueda. Lunetta on a 2:03.7. It's a 2:03 flat for Zonta van den Gerberg. Now, Zonta van den Gerberg has actually had a front row round here back a couple of years ago, so obviously likes Silverstone, but he's going to need to find... Oh, dear me, well, that's time for Osato's bike coming back in nothing but a sack. The 72 has had an enormous crash. That looks like
Chapel, isn't it?
Is it out of Chapel, or is it down towards Maggots and Beckett's? Is it the entry? Is it that fast kink on the left? Turn 14.
In the 4th sector is... for Osato.
If it's 14, it is Chapel, so you're right, Lewis. Oh, dearie me, that's 72. That is absolutely destroyed. What has happened here? Oh, big high side on exit. And Tyre Furusato, well, he's rolling, and that bike just picks up, and absolutely, well, Hiroshi Oyama is weeping into his English tea on that one.
Yeah, Furusato must have thought for 3/4 of that crash that he got away without too much damage. The bike suddenly picked up some momentum on this very hard and scorched grass here. It's not particularly soft over there, and it just gathered momentum, cartwheeled its way into a rather painful conclusion for Furusato and for Honda Team Asia. He will be starting at the back.
Yeah, that bike is absolutely not moving anywhere else in a hurry. That is a Tyre Furusato, who unfortunately, that is a second big accident of the weekend. He was down on the ground for a little while there, so probably just gathering his senses and making making sure everything's pointing in the right way. But the Japanese rider who finished 5th last time out in a career best Moto2 result, well, he's going to have to be coming from the very back of the grid. Luca Lanetto had a bit of a moment there down at turn 13, lost the front but managed to gather it up nicely. He's half a second off a 2:02.9 at the moment, set by Tony Arbolino. That is your reference time.
It's set by each of the top 4, actually. They're all on 2:02.9s, all the way down to Dennis Onchu, who is on a 2:02.999, but it's not particularly an emergency for him at this stage, even if he has just 800ths of a second back to Van den Gorbach. The rider who will have the sirens and alarm bells ringing will be Alonso, who did a 2:03.1 on his first lap, his best of the weekend so far, but it still wasn't enough for a place in the top 4.
Letter goes 8th on a 2:03.2. It's very, very tight, considering how long this Silverstone circuit is. We have got very, very tight margins here in Moto2. So at the moment, 8.5 minutes in, you see how dirty it is offline now. Alberto Ferrando is just coming off on the inside of the racing line through Chapel. You can just see how much dust he kicks up doing so. Dennis Onchu moving down towards Stowe. So we look at Adrian Huertas here for the Ital Trans Racing Machine. How tight do you want it through here? That's Ferrandez just bailing out, going down pit lane, it seems. Let's see if Huertas is able to clear Canet, who is in the way slightly on his first opening lap.
Shout out to Ferrandez, actually. 3rd on a 2:02.955. First time he's been to Silverstone. He had a rotten Friday where he had some technical problems in free practice 1, or technical problem in practice, should I say, after a crash in FP1 when he went down at Vale. So short of mileage yesterday was Ferrandez, but he's making up for lost time this afternoon.
Up the inside of Canet goes Huertas. Huertas 5th, Canet 11th at the moment. Only Sasaki, Zuratuza and Furusato behind him, and Furusato's not going to set a lap time. We're on board with David Alonso, who is 8th in this session. That is 22nd on the grid. That is a cause for concern as the number 80 gets back into pit lane. The Colombian just referencing to his mechanics and his crew exactly what he needs to go a bit faster, but David Alonso normally loves coming to the United Kingdom. He's not having a very happy weekend thus far. And a hand just to say stay cool and calm from Jorge Martinez Aspar as well. So David Alonso, work to do.
He is one of, some 6 riders remaining on the grid who've got a 100% Q2 record in 2026. That is under major, major threat now. Alonso doesn't have to make up much time. As you can see on the left-hand side of your screens, less than 0.2 of a second cover the top 8 riders in this Q1 session. It's unforgiving, and at the moment, it's David Alonso who is on the wrong side of that and potentially starting all the way back on the 8th row of the grid. Still 6.5 minutes, though, for the Colombian to snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat.
Alonso, last time he was outside of the top 10 on the grid was Catalunya. He was 13th then, and at least he did manage to get into Q2 to set that time. So here, he's not a happy camper, but then again, David Alonso was a bit of a surprise here last year. It wasn't a Moto2 podium that you thought was necessarily on the cards right the way through the entirety of the weekend last year. He was a bit of a Sunday surprise, of course. Moto2, if you are just joining us for the first time this weekend, today's schedule, we're a little bit later than normal, but it's got to be said, they are the first Grand Prix tomorrow. It's an action-packed Sunday. You really can't miss it. Moto4 British Cup gets us all underway at the very start of the day. 5 races on British Grand Prix Sunday. I can't remember the last time we had that in MotoGP, but it is the Moto4 British Cup that gets us all underway. Then it's Moto2 Day, the first race of the day at 11:15 local time. Then MotoGP follows, and then Moto3 at the end of that. And just when you thought you'd seen enough and seen it all, the Harley-Davidson Bagger World Cup concludes track action, and there is British representation in that, of course, right now as well with Bradley Smith. So 5 races, they're going to be memorable for sure. And of course, races start today with the MotoGP So Sprint, the Bagger World Cup, Race 1 and Moto4 British as well. So lots to get stuck into, lots of things to get stuck into for David Alonso. He needs to get stuck into some apexes, and a little bit later on the brakes, a little bit earlier on the throttle. He's in 8th at the moment. He needs to be in the top 4 with 5 on the clock.
Yeah, Bradley Smith, he's a Moto2 podium finisher around here from 28th on the grid, even if he needed a snorkel when he crossed the finish line, given how underwater the Silverstone circuit was on that particular occasion. No danger of that kind of weather approaching us tomorrow. Even for the UK, I think we can say with certainty that we're set there for the weekend.
I think we're going to have a dry Sunday. I think that day when Bradley Smith crossed the line in to take a podium. He was the first rider to ever have fins on. It was that wet out there. Was it 2011 or 2012?
2011, yeah.
Yeah, 2011, because both were quite wet, if memory serves me correct. At least one day in 2012 was wet,
yeah,
I
Grand
believe.
Prix that was won by Stefan Bradl, the first of 12 Kalex victories in the last 13 British Grand Prix. They have owned this particular venue.
Yes, there's not so much hope for anyone on a Boscoscuro. However, that could all change, of course. We think we've seen everything in Moto 2, and then, well, this was one of the best Grand Prix in Moto 2 ever last year here at Silverstone. What a final lap we had, and that, you know, will happen again tomorrow if it's as tight as we expect it to be. Joe Roberts at the moment working his way through Abbey and Farm and up towards Village as these guys head towards pit exit to get on with their outlap. They're only going to get one flying lap at this, because you're not going to be able to get under the 2-minute mark in Moto 2. So it's going to be one flying lap for the likes of Huertas and Canet, and likewise Dennis Onju as well, who's just come out. But Joe Roberts through the opening sector, 10th and a half under Lewis. So Roberts looking to move through if he can, and just hopefully correct his rather poor form of not moving out of Q1.
Yeah, well, in terms of hoping for a place or dreaming of a place in Q2, Canet cannot at the moment. He's all the way down in 11th place on a 2:03.438. Canet did a 2:02.998 yesterday.
It's up there with Phillip Island as fast first corners go.
She made life difficult for
I
yourself
really
there,
made myself jump through hoops, didn't I? Got there in the end, though. David Alonso coming through Village. Yeah, my teeth almost fell out. Coming down through. Oh, I tell you what, Alonso's up as well. Look at Joe Roberts. It's a great lap this from Joe Roberts. He really means business here to try and come through into Q2. He's at Stowe, so he's just got a few corners to negotiate here. Javi Zura2 is right behind him, but don't worry about that. Sasaki might need to be getting out of the way, though, because he's got Smoking Joe coming through into Vale. Was he a bit wide down at the first part? Perhaps we'll have to wait and see. Joe Roberts second at the moment. 3 red sectors for only 4,000s off his own lap time. Does he go P1? Wow. Yes, he does with a 2:02.1. That really, he got that final sector absolutely nailed. Joe Roberts is on the rails.
Yeah, that's by far and away his fastest lap of the weekend. In fact, only 3 riders have gone quicker than that at all this weekend. Holgado, Aegis and Gonzalez, who of course we'll be seeing in Q2. Park it up, Joe. I think that's more than good enough for a place in Q2. The question now is who's going to join him. And at the moment, both Arbolino and Alonso are on course.
Yeah, Arbolino looks really, really good through that 3rd sector. He lost a bit of time and he looked nailed to start the 4th sector in business. Just behind him is Angel Piqueras, but Piqueras isn't really on anything to shout about. I think he actually took the shortcut over there. Oh, look at the chatter! Look at the chatter through Stowe. Tony Arbolino, I mean, no wonder he had a little look over his left shoulder there, because that was absolutely bumping away through there. Tony Arbolino did very, very well, the number 14, to hold on to that. Let's see how much it cost him, because he was looking at really getting down to a competitive lap time. Did it all go away from him? It didn't. He done a fantastic job, but that front end and even the rear end was chattering its way through Stowe there. So good job from Arbolino. Alonso has gone 3rd, so that's a brilliant lap, and now he starts his final flying lap. His 100% record is intact at the moment to move out of Q1, but he's not going to improve on this one because we have Aaron Canet on the floor. As you said, Lewis, Canet has canned it.
Yes, he is in 11th place, and that will be 25th on the grid for Aaron Canet, a rider who was on pole position for the British Grand Prix last year, trying to go with his teammate Dennis Onju. And as mentioned, from starting at the very front of the grid here last year, Aaron Canet will be starting right near the back. At the moment, only Sasaki and Zuratuza, plus Forosato, of course, who hasn't set a time, will be behind him on the grid. His miserable 2026 goes on.
He's only been on the front 5 rows of this grid twice in 2026. Aaron Canet is just not enjoying it. Oh, enjoying it is Ayumu Sasaki, who was just out of nowhere, blasted his way up into 3rd. And I tell you what, David Alonso can't improve his time. And he's out because Zonta van den Gerberg has gone through. Both of the Mamuva and Idra Foglia RW Racing Team machines have gone and knocked David Alonso not out of one place, out of Q2 altogether. So David Alonso's 100% record of going through is over. The Colombian, who was looking at being a title contender, the Honda rider in MotoGP from 2027 onwards is going to be going from 19th on the grid at best. Adrian Huertas was on a lap, but he made Vale very difficult for himself. The number 99's coming through club. Has he got anything to improve? He doesn't. He lost it all and he's angry.
Yeah, he's not too pleased with that one. Looks like he's potentially going to be out of that Italtrans team at the end of this year into 2027. But unfortunately for David Alonso, take no pleasure in saying it, but that has been coming throughout the weekend. He hasn't been within a second of the fastest lap time in any session. I guess we're being generous if we say that Q1 is the first, because of course the fastest 14 riders aren't even in this session. And Alonso, 5th quickest. The 2:02.7 is his best lap time of the weekend, but it was not quick enough.
And he's not happy. He's looking at the big screens. He's just coming through, I think, turn 2, and he'll be on the brakes down into turn 3. He's taken the flag. But it does make you wonder if that yellow flag hadn't come out and Alonso could have a real crack at the whip on his final flying lap, whether or not he would have moved through. But how many times have we said it, Lewis? If you leave it late, you can find yourself being punished, because everybody is pushing in the final bit of Q1 or Q2. You can't afford to need a lap right at the end of the session. Great job by these guys to move and team really coming good there. Sasaki in 3rd and Zonta van den Gerberg. Well, we said he liked Silverstone in qualifying. He's moving through to Q2.
Yeah, might yet still have another front row to celebrate yet. We've seen plenty of riders go through Q1 to achieve that, but yeah, as you say, when you lean it down to your very last lap of the session, you're walking a tightrope without a safety net. Unfortunately, David Alonso tumbled off it. You could argue to no fault of his own on that last lap with the yellow flags waving, but unfortunately hadn't got the job done ahead of that, and he pays the price. Arbolino in 2nd place, and he does move through to qualifying 2 for the 8th time this year.
Zonta van den Gerberg points in the last 2 British GPs here at Silverstone, and nice to see him back in Q2, because last time he missed it for the first time since Catalonia. So a blot on the copybook as far as that was concerned back in the Saxon ring, but good to see that Zonta van den Gerberg lays it all on the line late on to go through into the top 4 placings. It's a fine margin that David Alonso is losing out by. In fact, it is only 44 thousandths of a second. But you can just see how much Sector 4 has cost him. Over 3/10 slower.
Yeah, over half the deficit in those 4 or 5 corners in the back end of the lap. And David Alonso will start on row 7 tomorrow, 19th place on the grid. Right next to him will be Alberto Ferrandez, of course.
Further down, 10th in that session, up puts him 24th, 1 place behind Jose Antonio Rueda, who, having had a good run into summer, it's fair to say Silverstone, it is one of the hardest tracks to learn as a rookie. It's one of the hardest tracks to learn on a Moto2 machine, and Jose Antonio Rueda has not had it easy. It's fair to say that the Red Bull KTM team haven't had it easy. Colin Vire has only just been scraping into the top 14 across the weekend so far, so Colin Vire at least is in Q2. Unfortunately, just falling short a little bit there was Jose Antonio Rueda, but it's Joe Roberts who does lead the way, and by over a quarter of a second, at 2:02.187. Now that is getting down to something rather meaningful, but it's all going to be lighting up in a moment. The battle for pole incoming.
Lighting up the timesheets in Q1 though was Joe Roberts at 2:02.187, comfortably through to the battle for pole. Tony Arbolino, Ayumi Sasaki and Zonta van den Gerberg join him, which means there's no room in the pole position shootout for David Alonso. Only 5th. Alberto Ferrandez 6th ahead of Denis Sonchu and Adrian Huertas. Rueda 9th ahead of Linetta. Piqueras will be slightly disappointed with 11th ahead of Canet, who fell. Zuratu's at 13th, and Taifur Osato, who also hit the deck. He set no time. So Joe Roberts then moves through to qualifying 2, fastest on a 2:02.1. He will be firmly in the picture in the battle for pole in Moto2, which comes next.
Welcome back to a packed Silverstone. We are just an hour away from the first race on Sprint Saturday. Of course, it is the MotoGP TISO Sprint, and well, after qualifying for MotoGP, we are in for a real treat. Talking of qualifying, well, Moto3 is all done and dusted, and oh, that British flag hopefully might not be the only one flying high come Sunday tomorrow. No spoilers. Moto2, we're halfway there. Joe Roberts, Tony Arbolino, Ayumu Sasaki and Zonta van den Gerberg making the most of Q1, and they're joining a very, very star-studded lineup coming up in Q2. But here at Silverstone, of course, we've been coming here now since 2010. We came back here way back in the late 70s and 80s, and the track has, let's be fair, changed fairly significantly since then. But all that history, all that legacy, it has been building all the while, and there's plenty more to be had this weekend. Q2 then, Danny Holgado led the way in practice yesterday ahead of last year's winner, Senna Aegis. Manu Gonzalez, your championship leader, in third. Alex Escurge, Ethan Guevara, Barry Baltus on his return. Danny Munoz, Mario Aggi, Celestino Vietti, Ivan Ortola, Alonso Lopez, Sergio Garcia, Philip Salach and Colin Vire moving through. And as we said, it is Ayumu Sasaki, Zonta van den Gerberg, as well as a few others, a couple of other stars taking place and going on up towards Q2. You're in the company of myself, Kiko Giles, and Lewis Sotheby here in commentary. Elliot York is down there in pit lane. Joe Roberts and Tony Arbolino setting the pace, Lewis, in that session just gone. And as you can see, Fabio Quartararo giving some final words of wisdom for Tony Arbolino to see if Arbolino can swing a surprise. But we have got an action-packed, a big headline in Q2 coming up next in Moto2.
Yeah, mouth-watering prospect, this one. In terms of the World Championship, the rider fourth in the World Championship, absent from this Q2 session. David Alonso, if you're just joining us, eliminated in qualifying one, but all the other big hitters are firmly in the mix. Manuel Gonzalez, the World Championship leader, who was fastest in free practice one yesterday. Ethan Guevara, second in the World Championship, who was quickest in FP2 this morning. Senna Aegis, last year's winner, is in this session. And Danny Holgado carrying Aspar's hopes all on his own in this session, fifth in the World Championship. He was fastest yesterday afternoon.
He was fast, and he has been really, really good right the way across the course of this weekend so far. By my reckoning, Danny Holgado has yet to finish outside the top four in any of the sessions. He was fourth this morning, he was fourth yesterday morning, and when it all mattered yesterday afternoon, he was able to be P1. But they are, of course, all chasing Manu Gonzalez, who it really doesn't matter what happens this weekend. He's still going to be leaving the UK as your championship leader, whereas here we have Barry Baltus, who has been unfortunate a lot of the time, Lewis, across the course of 2026. He's been out for the last couple of rounds following a crash over in Brno, but great to see Baltus very, very fast, very, very consistent and very, very quick and up the front of this order on his return. And the Belgian fans that made a short journey across the English Channel are very much out in force and in support this weekend.
Yep, let's head down to pit lane then for the first time in this Q2 session. High hopes for both of the Liquid Money Dynavolt Intact GP riders. Manu Gonzalez, the championship leader, and Senna Aegis, last year's winner. Jürgen Ling is giving his pre-qualifying thoughts to Al.
Yeah, he is. Cheers, Lewis. Jürgen, great to see you. Hope you had a great summer break, if you can call it a break. I'm sure you were hard at work. What's the latest with your team? How are Manu and Senna feeling? Both looked really strong so far, and what's the mindset in the team with both riders heading into a very important second half of the season?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the summer break was important for everyone to charge the batteries, also to me. But honestly, I had not too much time, but at least I had some days off. Regarding our riders, they are performing very well. They are feeling good. Manu has a bit better pace at the moment as Senna, but Senna wasn't that happy with the bike this morning, so they made a small change. Let's see if this helps him for tomorrow. I think for the qualifying, both can be competitive, but you know here, a good train or a bit slipstream or a free lap could help a lot. So you never know, but I think both riders are competitive, at least for tomorrow, and today for the qualifying we need a bit luck.
What was Senna's problem this morning? What did he feel on the bike that he wasn't quite comfortable with, and what have you changed for qualifying?
Yeah, the bike was a bit pitching too much. Normally he liked this a lot, but here on this track is not really helpful, so they try to avoid this problem a bit.
Manu obviously leading the championship by over 50 points. Senna chasing him. How difficult is it going to manage those two riders when they're both chasing the same objective? Of course, you've been in this situation with Manu before. Senna not quite so, but what's the sort of atmosphere in the team heading into the final 11 Grand Prix of this season?
I have to say the good thing is they respect each other. They're not best friends, but they respect each other, so they know the limits. And on the other hand, I have to say it's a really healthy competition in the team, so this is nice to see. We have a really good mood at the moment.
What's Manu's mindset coming into the second half? We know obviously what happened last year with him losing the title, but he looks a different rider this season. I'm sure he's learned a lot of lessons and has a different approach potentially.
100%. We just talk about that, but I think last year was also some housemaid problems, a bit too much calculating the point instead of going for a win, and so now we say we go day by day and race by race and put the maximum, and then end of the season we count the points. So this changes a lot also in his mind.
Just finally, Jürgen, I've got to ask about the rumours currently. I know Senna and Manu have been heavily linked with a move to GP. It sounds like Senna might be moving to Tech 3, not confirmed yet, but heavy rumours. What can you tell us? Obviously, it heavily affects your team and your plans for 2027. So where are you guys currently at, and what can you tell us?
Yeah, of course, the rumours I hear too. So anyhow, if Manu or Senna moves, the MotoGP can be only one. And let's say if Senna moves, maybe Manu can go to Superbike. If not, we are very happy to continue with him and do another year with one of our riders. With Senna, it's very clear. If he cannot go up, that he stay with us. But with Manu, it's a different story. But I think he needs a really good Superbike seat. Otherwise, he will continue with us.
Thank you, Jürgen. Good luck for the session, and I'm sure I'll speak to you numerous times across the next 11 Grand Prix. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Jürgen Ling. Very much to you as well, Elliot York. We know the rumours of Senna Aegis and Manu Gonzalez. There is no room at the inn for both, it would seem, not just in Intax but also elsewhere in MotoGP. It would be a big shame if we see Manu Gonzalez not get a look in MotoGP. One of the bigger what-ifs that we've had over the course of the last few years. He's had to come the hard way through World Supersport 300, through World Supersport, then through a couple of teams here in Moto2. He's so close to that elusive title last year, and he's leading away by 51.5 points this year. Surely Manu Gonzalez is now just in a mode to say, well, you had your chance, but if I leave this paddock and head off to Superbikes, which the rumours are saying he may well do, it'll be a bit of a shame for the teams in MotoGP that overlooked him for perhaps other riders who are not fighting for the title this year.
Yeah, it's a real shame for Manu Gonzalez, but it is unfortunately a very cruel business in Grand Prix motorcycle racing. Danny Holgado here on screen, of course, we know will be going up to MotoGP next season. Contract news breaking literally as we're on the air here in the commentary box, because moments ago the MSI team in this Moto2 squad have announced an unchanged lineup for next season. So they have won the bidding war, it would appear, to retain Ivan Ortola, the in-form Ivan Ortola, winner of 2 of the last 3 Grand Prix. He will be staying with that MSI squad alongside Angel Piqueras, so an unchanged lineup for that team next year.
Only one new recruit in the team across the board. Moto3, Valentin Peroni will move across, so that's very interesting indeed for the Argentinian. He's going to be teammates with Hakim Danishu. Unsurprisingly, stays the Malaysian, the Grand Prix winner this year. He's looking to probably be a championship challenger next year, but we've got lots of time to get through all the rumours and all the contract talk in Moto2 and Moto3 over the next 10 Grand Prix. Let's get on with qualifying here in Moto2 Q2, and right on cue with the MT Helmets MSI squad, we pick up the newly signed Ivan Ortola, who's had a contract extension. Look who's just gone top, Ethan Guevara on a 2:01.483. That is seriously quick around here. That is a new lap record here at Silverstone. Ethan Guevara, the number 28, is half a second ahead of Ortola, who's in second place. So Guevara, well, obviously the Boston Scuro works, even if the form book says it shouldn't round here.
Yeah, his teammate there in the box, Alberto Fernandez, didn't look too impressed with that, perhaps because he was eliminated in qualifying 1, where that will take an awful lot of beating from Ethan Guevara, who was fastest in a free practice 2 earlier on today, and is quickest now by 4/10 of a second. And when you're putting 4/10 into Ivan Ortola, you're going some.
That's 7/10 quicker than the lap record coming into this year's British Grand Prix, so definitely Ethan Guevara has laid down a gauntlet here. Let's see what Manu Gonzalez can respond with. 3.5 tenths off. That would still be good enough for the front row, though. If he can hold it, it's still good enough for second place. So it's not all over just yet, but 2:01.483. I can remember MotoGP when it was a big achievement to get under the 2-minute barriers. So the fact that 2:01.4 in Moto2 just shows you how technologically developed this class has been over the last few years. Oh, hello. Yellow flags at 10, 11 and 12. Now, that is Maggotts and Beckett's. That is going to be quick. I wonder who we've picked up. Alex Escridge coming through that sector, but yellow flags at 3 turns. Oh, we have had a wreck at the very top. Is that Adji?
It's Adji, yeah, running towards his bike. So he's ended up on the left-hand side of the racetrack, and his bike's ended up on the right. He's lost it on the way into Maggotts, hasn't he?
Honda Team Asia guys are going to be here all afternoon, because Tayo Furusato wrecked the machine on the exit of Chapel. As you say, Lewis, we got a red flag, and that is not a surprise, because we have got a massive accident. I can remember back in 2016 we had a big MotoGP crash going into there. Mario Adji has at least got off the track, but he's instantly just knelt down there on the grass.
He must have lost it on that sort of left kink on the way in, and that's why the bike's gone straight on, and he's then gone off to the left-hand side. Philip Salac, we understand, has also gone down. Is he in a separate incident, or is he involved in the same incident at turn 11, and we have 2 riders on the floor? I was just about to say, it's very, very unusual that you have a crash on your own going into there, so I wonder if they've tangled. We see how tight it can be. I remember, I think it was Loris Baz and Pol Espargaro 10 years ago here on the opening lap over there at what was turn 2 and 3 back then, because we used the old pit. And even this morning, Brian Uriarte was really cutting up David Gonzalez as well. So it was a bit tight. It is always a bit tight going into the Maggotts and Beckett's complex. But if you are just joining, oh, we've got another one down. That is Zonta van den Goorberg. So we have had a big accident here over at turn 11. It seems that 3 riders are involved. Zonta van den Goorberg, I'm glad to report, as you can see on your screens, is up and walking, and he's talking to the marshals and the medics. So Zonta seems okay, but if you are just joining us, red flag conditions here, Moto2 Q2, this will undoubtedly mean that we are going to be just creeping into build-up time for MotoGP. You can see a vast scene of this, because we've got a bike and a rider on the right-hand side. We've got bike and debris on the left-hand side, so there's definitely been big contact here coming down into turn 11 and 12. Yeah, that's Hiroshi Oyama, who's already counting the cost of Tayo Furusato's crash in qualifying 1. Let's have a look then. So this is Adji ahead and van den Goorberg up behind. So van den Goorberg's going to try and go up the inside and into the side of Adji. I have to say that's not a good move to make at that part of the race. So that sends Adji. He's going to go right across the racetrack. There is Mario Adji across that hard grass. Van den Goorberg off to the left. We don't quite know where Philip Salac figured into all of that, but understandably it's under investigation, and I think the finger may well be pointing at Zonta van den Goorberg.
Well, Philip Salac I've got down here as in the pit, so I wonder if he wasn't actually involved, and maybe we've got a rogue graphic perhaps on that one, but let's wait and see. It's also saying that Zonta van den Goorberg and Mario Adji are in the pit, so we'll have to wait and see. But Philip Salac confirmed as being in the box up from L, so
if he did crash, he picked it back up.
Yeah, exactly. I think he maybe ran wide and then crashed after, but we'll have to wait and see. We don't want to speculate. The main thing is the 2 riders that were involved in that are okay, and that's a handshake between Zonta van den Goorberg and Mario Adji. It was a bold move. The move is on, but it is so fast and so tight, and I think what happened was Zonta van den Goorberg had to bail out. That's why that bike went so far away. There is Hiroshi Oyama, your team boss down there at Honda Team Asia, who has got a lot of work on here, as have the marshals, because there was a lot of debris all over the place.
Yeah, and poor Mario Adji has had such an injury-ravaged Moto2 career since he moved up into this class. So we hope that Adji hasn't injured something again. Of course, we hope both riders are absolutely fine. That is what's left of Zonta van den Goorberg's Momovan Idrofoglia RW Kalex, which went on its own journey after the 2 riders came together. and they will be starting right next to each other on the grid too, because they'll be 17th and 18th at the end of this session. Both will take no further part.
Yeah, that bike is absolutely wrecked. The front tyre has absolutely been decimated there, as you could see. So, well, we're waiting for this one to be cleaned up. I have a feeling that we may well just have a little bit of a pause whilst we are in a red flag. Let's head down to pit lane. I think Elliot York has got someone with some breaking news. El, take it away.
Yeah, exactly. You said it on air, gents, and got some news for us, Geordie, down here at the MSI garage. We'll start with the Moto2 session, because we're in the Moto2 session. You've confirmed your team next year. Ivan and Angel staying put. That's great news for you guys, great news for those two as well to stay with you guys for another season. So talk us through the thought process and, yeah, what's the feeling in the team like now that's all confirmed?
Yeah. Today we announced the lineup for next year, Moto3 and Moto2. About Moto2, we are really happy because we're still with Piqueras. We trust a lot in his potential, and he's growing, and he's recovering from his injury, and everything is on our plan. I'm sure next year we'll come back really strong. About ARUTALA, all the people know that all the team wanted to join with them, push a lot. But to be honest, the deal was really easy because we sit down with them, we asked directly, seeing his eyes and asking them if they want to stay or not, because this is the key. Because we have a contract, we have a right, but we don't want to use if they don't want to be here. And his answer was really clear. We want to stay 1 year here. My dream is go up to MotoGP in 2028. And the best place to try to achieve my dream is to stay here. The deal is done really easy. 1 month ago, but we are announcing today.
How many teams were involved, and how much did that play on Ivan's mind? Obviously not too much, because he's just won a couple of races in the last 3 Grand Prix, and I guess you guys, it's a bit of a privilege to have so many teams want one of your riders, and then he ends up staying. So how's it been in the background for Ivan over the last couple of months?
Yeah, I think all the top teams sent it to his manager one proposal. I think for probably I can miss one, but I think all the top teams. But anyway, that means that we are doing a good job. That means that we must be proud of our selection of talent, because our main goal is just to take the riders in Moto3 or in Junior GP like Hakim, Danish, and to help them to go up. If the other teams are really interested to get our riders, that means that we are doing a really good job.
Ivan told us about the German GP being a massive tick in his box to set pole position for the first time, lead every lap and win a Grand Prix. He obviously won back in Brno as well. What's the team's mindset and Ivan's mindset coming into the second half of the season? Because I know he's sort of 80 or so points away from Manu, but he's not out of this title. What are you thinking with Ivan? There's no pressure, of course. Are you thinking there's a title to be won?
I don't know. You know, this is a sports, high level, and all the things can happen. And we will try to do as maximum as possible to fight for the maximum. But to be honest, we are in this stage to grow, to understand all the things that help us to grow, to be fast. The case of Ivan is clear because they have the speed before of the season, but they understand also the team to help them they understand who manage the tires, the pace, to ride alone, and this is a process. And some riders, this process is too short, and some other riders a little bit more longer. But in the case of Ivan, I think they are making the steps that we planned 2 years ago.
Thank you, Geordie. Just before Ivan heads out, just want to ask about Angel as well, the injury update. How's he feeling physically after the summer break?
No, he come back really strong. This morning he was really fast in top 5 or top 6, but we make a wrong strategy during the Q1. We did a big mess, and something that can happen.
Thank you, Geordie. Good luck for the session, of course, for the rest of the season as well. Catch up soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Geordie Cattell. Thank you very much, Elliot York. Just out of red flag conditions then. The clock ticks down and, well, now it really is time to push on as fast as possible and with as few mistakes as possible as well, because we haven't got time to do a two-run strategy in this one. You're going to have to go for broke from the start. It's over 2 minutes a lap round here. That means it's a 2-minute 40 or so out lap, and at this pace they're not going to leave themselves very many to do by the end of the session.
Yeah, fortunately every rider, with the exception of the two that went down, Van den Gorberg and Adji, did get a representative lap on the board. So we've got Guevara and Ortola plus Lopez, your current front row of the grid. Alonso Lopez, of course, returning to action this weekend after breaking his hand pre-Bruno. They're your front row at the moment in the 201s. We then got Gonzalez, Munoz and Holgado, your second row. Sasaki at the moment is up in 7th place. That would be an equal best qualifying for the Japanese if he can hang on to that. Remember, he was in qualifying 1. Aegis is probably the rider under the most pressure at this stage. He's down in 8th place ahead of Salac and Celestino Vietti. So Guevara, of course, in a very strong position on that 201.4, but this will essentially, as you say, just be one shot, one more run through to the checkered flag in 6 minutes 45 seconds time.
201.483, 201.815 was the fastest time from yesterday. So literally only Ethan Guevara has gone quicker than what Danny Holgado was able to do, and as I say, it is a new lap record. Holgado, here he is, fastest on Friday, looking to try and replicate that today. At the moment in 6th and 8/10 off, so he's got a little bit of pace left in the locker, I am sure. Comes across the line now, and let's see exactly what he's got. Through turn 1 then, Abbey. I remember when I used to turn left there and go up over the brill, down over the hill into Bridge and Priory, but those days are long gone. Brand new kart track over there.
We'd love to have a go on. We drive past that every time we come into the circuit. It looks quite the facility, doesn't it? Danny Holgado then into the newer section of this circuit around Aintree and the loop onto the Wellington Straight, and he's in touch at the moment with Ethan Guevara, who is waiting his moment to head back into the box. This is the Grassini box we're looking at. The 21 of Alonso Lopez on the right, the 3 of Sergio Garcia on the left, who unfortunately we can report, although he's been improving this weekend, he is not feeling particularly great. A bout of gastroenteritis, unfortunately, for the number 3.
It was not seeming to slow him down yesterday, though, so maybe that is the trick for a revival of Sergio Garcia's.
At least we know he lost the weight.
True, yeah. Whatever he took, can I have some, please? Recommend the restaurant, because I could do with losing a few. Down pit road they go then. Ayumu Sasaki leads out this trio, and it is both of the Grassini Italjet Moto 2 machines just behind him. Of course, Sasaki now will be the only Idrofoglia machine out there, the only Mamovin Idrofoglia RW Racing team machine out there, courtesy of Zonta van den Gerberg's rather bold attempt to pass Mario Adji that brought out the red flag just a moment ago. So down in towards turn 1 then. Let's see what Manu Gonzalez has got. Less than 5 minutes on the clock. He's working his way through Abbey, through Farm, and on the brakes into Village. Ethan Guevara parked in pit lane at the moment. A 201.483 is the opposition's target time from him.
I don't know if you noticed, he was right behind Manu Gonzalez. It was Ivan Ortola, the number 4 winner of the Tour de l'Est 3 Grand Prix, who is right behind Manu Gonzalez and hoping to pick up some slipstream and some pointers from the points leader. Here comes Holgado, who's, if he does improve, it's not going to be by much on that 202.2 he did earlier on. It's a 202.3 on that lap for Holgado. He stays in 6th place.
Yeah, about half a tenth off what he was able to do earlier on, and look who's going gangbusters through sector 1. Tony Arbolino is following his teammate Barry Baltus, so Arbolino just loses a bit through that second sector. Let's see what he's got through the third sector, but Baltus has been in great form on his return, Lewis, so Arbolino's got a good reference up ahead of him.
Gonzalez, as you can see there on screens, has had a very slow first half of lap. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's been told of Ortola behind him and has let Ortola through. I'm not towing you around to knock me potentially down the order or potentially to take pole position. Ortola, though, is still pushing on, and he's right in touch with Guevara halfway round.
Ortola, of course, was your pole sitter last time out. He's the first time pole sitter last time out. He ended down with Alonso's streak of poles. We've had 9 different pole pole sitters in Moto 2 in 2026. There's only David Alonso and Ethan Guevara who have had more than one, and there's only Ethan Guevara who could possibly add to that tally because David Alonso has not made it through into Q2. Down into Vale then, we're following Tony Arbolino, who is still in touch here. Half a second off or so. This would be the second row of the grid if he can hold it. Coming through Club, coming to the line, Tony Arbolino goes 10th, lost a little bit of time through that fourth and final sector.
Right behind his teammate Baltus. Roberts up onto the third row in 7th place, a 2:02.3 for him, which would be a heck of a result given that he started his day in qualifying 1. Careful not to take too much curve there through Abbey Joe, because that could send you on a one-way ticket to the gravel trap. That's Alexis Scridge on the right of picture, who had a good first half of the lap, but unfortunately has had to bail out of it.
Yeah, it's all gone away for a Scridge. Let's see what Holgado's got. He's not doing anything too much on this lap. He did set a great first sector, but I wonder if the tyres are just going off a little bit and he rolled out of it through the
sitting this out, is he?
Yeah, I think Guevara is trying to save some time. I mean, 2.5 minutes on the well, he's definitely not going to get out and get round.
No one's threatening him at the moment. Maybe that's what he was doing, watching the sector times. If no one's going to beat me, I'll just save myself, save the tyre, and walk my way down to Parc Ferme, because at the moment that's where he's going to be heading.
Alonso Lopez has just set a red sector through the first one, but he's only 24 thousandths under what Ethan Guevara was able to. You can just see a small delay there coming through. That's courtesy of that red flag caused by Zonta van den Gerberg and also Mario Adji. So 5 minutes later for the MotoGP sprint. So not too much of a delay, but a delay nonetheless. But 5 minutes as usual. Our team out there on the track cleaning up, and our events team making sure that's minimal disruption for the rest of the day's action. So new MotoGP sprint time 4:05 local time here in Silverstone. Down the back straight we go with Tony Arbolino, but nothing really to write home about here. Alonso's time has gone away from Colin Vyers on a personal best. Holgado has set a very, very fast first sector, as has Alex Escreech. He was red through that first sector, 64 thousandths of a second under Guevara.
He's still sat in the box waiting. He might go out for a practice start. I guess that's why he's still got his helmet on, but he's looking pretty comfortable at the moment. We're only seeing red sectors through sector 1. Clearly Guevara absolutely monstered sector 2, because that's where he's made so much of his advantage. One more shot left at it for the Fantic duo, who at the moment are together on the 4th row of the grid.
Not sure we're going to see too much. Well, here's a train. Here's Vietti. Less than a minute to go. Vietti's going to get across the line for another lap. If he can hold this, it'll put him on the 2nd row of the grid. Vietti now loses it all in that 3rd sector. Salac goes to the 2nd row of the grid. So brilliant stuff from the Czech rider, who's been in good form in qualifying in 2026. He goes 6th.
So I guess I'll go for my lap of honour then, says Ethan Guevara. That's potentially what we're about to see from the number 28. He's still got 4/10 over the field. Did notice as those final laps began, Senna Regius right ahead of Manu Gonzalez. The two intact riders locked together on their final flyer.
Worth noting that Ethan Guevara's first pole of this season came at Le Mans, and he converted it there. He wasn't able to do so over in Balaton Park. Scridge goes 8th. But Ethan Guevara is just a few seconds away from perhaps taking a 3rd pole of the season. Let's see what Alonso Lopez has got in the locker. But we've seen that first sector is very easy, it seems, in this session to get a red sector off the board. Let's see what Lopez has got. Gonzalez just a second or so ahead of him on the track. They slide through Woodcote now and go across the timing barrier. Lopez, does he lose time? We'll see. He doesn't. He gains time. Alonso Lopez, but he's got Philip Salac right in his way. So Lopez on a provisional front row, and his return to action here in Moto 2, looking maybe at first pole of the year.
Gonzalez did lose time though, so he's going to struggle to improve on 4th here. Might just be able to squeeze onto the front row, but of course Lopez himself is improving. Senna Agius, he has rolled out a bit, so Agius, that's a big surprise. He'll be starting at best on the 4th row.
Last year's Moto 2 winner here, Agius, so lots of work for the Australian to do. He's a second off as well, so not sure quite what's happened there. Alonso Lopez is still right with us here. He's still going for it. He's still in the mix. So let's see. Oh, he's a bit wide. He almost needs to be. He needs the space. He's definitely not going to get pole here. I think it's going to be a front row. I say he's definitely not going to be on pole, but we'll have to wait and see unless he does something spectacular through Vale. Alonso Lopez, we're following him. He's following Vietti and Salac. The number 21 is coming through Club now, asking for the power. He's going for pole. Does he get it? He goes 2nd, so he does lose a little bit of time. He knows there was a bit more left in the locker, but he does get under the old lap record. It is going to be a pole though for Ethan Guevara, a third of this season. He's only been able to convert one of them so far, but he is in the box seat. Alonso Lopez second. A great job done by Alonso Lopez, who returns to the front row. And Ivan Ortola, with a new contract in his pocket, rounds out the front three. Manu Gonzalez, your championship leader, will be at the head of the second row.
An all-Spanish top 5 on the grid, and what we've got 7 Spaniards in the top 8 on the grid. The only interloper is the Czech Filip Salac, but Guevara did enough on that first lap, a 2:01.4, and just sat and watched the rest of them ride for their very lives and ultimately get nowhere near him. Perhaps Lopez just hoovered up a little bit into the slipstream of those riders up ahead of him into Stowe Corner, very nearly clipped the rear tyre of the rider up ahead of him, ended up running slightly wide. Not at all sure whether he would have had enough of pole anyway, but certainly would have been closer to Ethan Guevara, who does take pole for the British Grand Prix.
Worth noting a little bit further down the order, Danny Holgado in 7th. He would have expected a little bit more than that after being fastest yesterday and not outside the top 4 so far this weekend. Barry Baltus is another who has been pretty quick right the way across the course of the British GP so far. We've already touched on Senna Aegis, and of course, well, we spoke about him at great length in Q1, but David Alonso has got a lot of work to do to come through from 19th place on the grid. A 2:02.7 versus a 2:01.4. It's close in Moto 2, but unfortunately, if you don't make the cut, you can't compete going forward into Q2. Alonso Lopez, that's going to be his 13th front row start, and it is going to be his 2nd of the season, of course. His last one coming at Kota.
Yeah, what a return to form and return from injury for Alonso Lopez. Missed the last 3 Grand Prix, and making up for lost time is the Spaniard on the Gresini Calyx, and confirmed for next season, Ivan Ortola. Confirmed on the front row of the grid and very much in play to challenge for a 3rd Grand Prix win out of the last 4. But beware, the World Championship leader, Manu Gonzalez. Here he is on board with the points leader. He will certainly have his eyes firmly forwards from 4th.
He will indeed, and of course when you've got your championship rival in pole position, you can't be too far behind Nurse. He's going to have to go some to catch Guevara, but like we saw in Balaton Park, it was a surprise that Manu Gonzalez was behind Ethan Guevara that time, but Guevara's had great pace. He was only 5th yesterday, but very, very fast this morning, and converting it again into qualifying this afternoon.
Yeah, fastest in both sessions today was Guevara. This is for me the surprise of qualifying. Senna Aegis down in 11th place. And if he is going to go for back-to-back British Grand Prix successes, he's going to have to do it from the 4th row of the grid. Aegis joined on that 4th row by Celestino Vietti too, so some heavyweight names deep in the grid.
Senna Aegis, yeah, middle of that 4th row. He's behind Ayumi Sasaki. Now, that must be Ayumi Sasaki's first top 10 on the grid since Phillip Island last year. It was a career best. Let's just head down to pit lane before we do get on with the Parc Fermé procedures. Al, what have you got for us?
Yeah, thank you. Down here with Alex De Angelis. Alex, a great lap from Ethan and a great weekend so far. He's looking good, isn't he?
Yes, we are really incredibly happy. He did something incredible at the first exit, and he let us to decide to don't use even the 2nd tire of new. So we have a new tire for tomorrow, like just in case. So it's incredible because actually yesterday morning we had a lot of chattering. We worked a lot. He's going to help us to understand what was the problem, and this is the result. Compliment.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
Moto 2 are first up on Grand Prix Sunday tomorrow at 11:15 local time. It is going to be a blockbuster. Talking of blockbusters, the MotoGP Tissot Sprint 5 minutes later, but it's going to be well worth the wait. Moto 2 is coming to an end. Lewis, I'll let you wrap up because I'm not sure we're going to have time for any interviews at the moment. We haven't been told anything, but it seems as though Elliot York is down there with his headset on, maybe listening to music or maybe waiting. Seems like we aren't going to have any interviews, so I'm going to hand over to you, Lewis. You can finish up, but Moto 2, Moto 3 are going to be brilliant, and MotoGP, well, we get the trailer coming up. Enjoy, gents.
Yes, it's going to be quite the 10-lap sprint coming up. We look forward to the drama that awaits us in this thrilling MotoGP World Championship battle as the second half of the season gets underway. Second half of a Moto 2 season, which could yet see Ethan Guevara gain further ground in the chase for the championship. Only half the job done today with pole position, but he has certainly put himself in the prime spot to gain more ground on Manu Gonzalez, who starts at the head of the 2nd row tomorrow. Confirmation then of how this qualifying session all shook out. An interrupted qualifying session after that red flag midway through Q2. But it is a third pole of the season for Ethan Guevara. An all-Spanish front row. Guevara, Lopez and Ortola. Manu Gonzalez, the championship leader, 4th, ahead of Danny Munoz, 5th. Philip Salach taking 6th place ahead of Danny Holgado, Alex Eskridge and Joe Roberts. Ayumi Sasaki from Q1 to 10th, ahead of heavyweight runners Aegis and Vietti, who join him on that 4th row. Fantix together on row 5, Arbolino and Baltus, ahead of 15th place Colin Bayer. Sergio Garcia, despite illness, 16th, ahead of Van den Goorberg and Anchi, who crashed together in Q2. David Alonso, the big surprise in qualifying 1 after failing to advance. He will start tomorrow in 19th place. So pole position then goes to Ethan Guevara, who looks to have MotoGP in his future. MotoGP is where we're heading next, with countdown to the Tissot Sprint getting underway shortly.
The spellbinding Silverstone circuit takes centre stage after the summer break as the world's elite riders get set for action in round 12. Its flat but phenomenal layout was first built in 1948 on the site of a former Royal Air Force base, but who will be flying over 10 laps in the Tissot Sprint coming up next live, with Aprilia locking out the front row of the grid for the 3rd time in 2026. It's time for MotoGP. A classic, an iconic and historic venue to resume the action in this year's MotoGP World Championship. It is the one and only Silverstone circuit in the heart of England. The longest track on the Grand Prix calendar, 18 corners, 10 right, 8 of them left, 5.9 kilometres, 3.666 miles. Sector 1 starts with the fast sprint through turn 1 and return to the farm curve before you go through the tight sections of Luffield. Woodcote spectacular there. High speed change of direction, 3rd gear throughout Maggots and Beckett's, and then lap completed. Always drama at Silverstone as you go through 16, 17 and 18 Vale through the club corner. It's a long layout, which means there's lots of overtaking hotspots around this circuit. As just mentioned, it is 16, 17 and 18 where we always get fireworks. This was Marc Marquez versus Frankie Morbidelli at the end of the Grand Prix for the podium last year. Well, it feels like an eternity ago, does it now, since we were last racing in MotoGP just before the long summer break at the Sachsenring in Germany. Marc Marquez firing away from pole position, looking for another dominant performance in front of the German fans. Fabio Di Giannantonio crashing out for the first time on a Sunday using some new Ducati Aero, a dent in the Italian Championship charge. Alex Marquez was running in a strong 2nd place behind brother Marc when he crashed out of contention at the final corner. That left Trackhouse duo Ralph Hernandez and Ayagura to battle it out for the final place on the podium, with Marc Marquez, as he so often has done in Germany, long gone at the front, and Marc Marquez made it a perfect 10 out of 10. His 10th victory, retaining the crown as the king of the Sachsenring. That success marks 3rd in the last 4 Grand Prix in 2026, means he is now firmly in the hunt to retain his World Championship, firmly on course to lift the biggest prize in motorcycle racing for the 8th time. Our return from the summer break here at a sun-kissed Silverstone. Welcome one and all to the Qatar Airways Grand Prix of Great Britain. It has been a dramatic and sensational return from our 3-week summer break. Record lap times on practice Friday, and more records tumbling in Q2 this morning. World Championship leader Jorge Martin One of 5 riders split by just 24 points coming into this Chapter 12 of this compelling title fight in 2026. Jorge Martin on pole position for just the second time on board the factory Aprilia. He did it in some style as well this morning. A new all-time lap record once again from a factory Aprilia. On this occasion, it was the Spaniard, it was the 2024 MotoGP World Champion who got the job done. A 1:56.160. What a lap time that was. What a performance it was from Martin, who doesn't really matter what happens over the 10-lap Tissot sprint coming up shortly here at the British Grand Prix, because Martin will still hold the advantage at the top of the World Championship. Will he extend, or will he lose part of his 14-point gain he has over closest rival Ayagura coming into this afternoon's action? Once again, it has been very much an Aprilia-dominated affair, this British Grand Prix. Another Aprilia lockout of the front row for the 3rd time in 2026. Martin leads the Superfile Trackhouse duo of Ralph Fernandez in 2nd, Ayagura in 3rd place. Ralph Fernandez so close, just 200ths away from registering his first ever MotoGP pole position. Aprilia, though, in the ascendancy pretty much throughout this Grand Prix weekend. We've had a magnificent 7 as well so far this weekend. Martin, Fernandez, Aguirre, your front row. The Gian Antonio, Bezzecchi, Marc Marquez and Alex Marquez are your top 7 qualifiers. That same top 7 are featured in the top 7 in practice yesterday, FP2 this morning, and Q2 earlier on today. You feel like it's one of that 7 that is going to be the big contenders for the medals in the sprint coming up shortly, and the main Grand Prix here tomorrow. Welcome back. Great to have you back. Great to have your company with us for this Chapter 12. Tissot sprint coming up in about 25 minutes' time. A slightly delayed to proceedings after the red flag for the incident involving Mario Adrian Zonta van den Gorberg in Moto 2. Both of those riders are A-OK. But it's Matt Burt and Lewis will be talking you through all the action with Jack Appleyard down in pit lane. Lewis, this weekend has been very much an Aprilia show. Jorge Martin putting on some show this morning to take just his 2nd ever Aprilia pole position. Can anybody stop the Nuali factory from locking out the podium here this afternoon? They're in position 8.
It's going to take something special, you have to say. This feels a lot like Mugello, it feels a lot like Assen. Circuits quite similar in characteristics, quite high speed in nature, long fast corners that the Aprilia excels in, and that's what we've seen so far, with 4 in the top 5 and an all Aprilia front row. As you mentioned, kind of feels like Jorge Martin, despite leading the World Championship, is the Aprilia rider we'd spoken the least about until the final minute of qualifying 2, when he delivered that blockbuster 1:56.160 to deny Ralph Fernandez pole position.
There's been a lot for Ralph Fernandez to celebrate, though, over the last few weeks or so. You can see there he's sporting a very special Spanish World Cup winning football helmet, paying tribute to the recent FIFA World Cup winners over in the United States. He's fresh off the back of signing a new 2-year contract with Superfile Trackhouse as well. And he was mighty close to that maiden pole position, a 1:56.181, just being edged out by Jorge Martin. Aprilia never ever locked out a MotoGP front row coming into 2026. They've locked out the front row in 3 of the last 6 Grand Prix, if you include Mugello and Assen. Marc Marquez yesterday said we are far from the podium. A little bit of a similar story to Assen, where Aprilia were so dominant. You feel that it has been a bit of a damage limitation exercise for Marc, but you can never discount the reigning champ.
Now, Marc Marquez looked like he potentially was on course for an unlikely pole at the halfway stage in qualifying 2 when he led after those first runs. This is during Marc Marquez's 2nd, when we saw that seat arrow disappearing off the tail of Marco Bezzecchi's Aprilia. The red and yellow slippery surface flag, to give it an informal name, was flashing in front of Marc Marquez, which we gather distracted the world champion. Either, I'm not sure it would have cost him pole position. There's the debris over to his left-hand side. Whatever the outcome, Marc Marquez 6th place on the grid, which is roughly around the sort of position he expected to be in after Friday. He was likening this weekend potentially to Assen, where he was battling all around the fringes of the top 6. I think if Marc can make any positions up on where he's starting, he would consider that a successful sprint.
6 on Friday morning, 6 on Friday afternoon, 6 on Saturday morning, which is where he'll fire away from the back of the 2nd row of the grid. Marco Bezzecchi, well, he delivered the brilliant all-time lap record here yesterday. with a 156.2, which was slightly bettered by both his teammate Martin and Fernandez this morning. This is going to be a very long 10-lap Tissot sprint and an even longer, a tough weekend of racing ahead for Marco Bezzecchi. He did pass a fitness test here on Thursday, but nowhere near his peak physical best. Recovering from the left collarbone, he fractured in that scary high-speed Q2 crash at the Saxon Ring pre-summer break, and also he suffered quite a nasty open wound to his left knee, which seems to be troubling him the most around the high-speed change direction, in particular here at Silverstone. A lack of movement, a lack of freedom of movement in that left knee. It hasn't been hampering him too much over one lap. Marco Bezzecchi, fourth now in the World Championship, 4 points behind Marc Marquez. He lines up on the middle of that second row in 5th place.
He just needs some points, doesn't he, this afternoon? It's not a day to be a hero in terms of trying to take undue risks, given what's gone before for Marco Bezzecchi. Ayagura, we saw just there, getting booted up and ready to go for the Trackhouse team as part of that double front row, and he looks like a major threat this afternoon. Ayagura, just so cool, and very little weakness now in the armoury of the Japanese star. He'll be chasing, of course, first sprint victory here this afternoon to go with his first Grand Prix win that he took at Assen.
Fabio Di Giannantonio also chasing his first sprint victory, coming up shortly, over 10 laps. Ayagura's had 3 front row starts in his MotoGP career. Those 3 have come in the last 4 Grand Prix. On the last 2 occasions when he's been on that front row, well, he has cashed in big time. Pole position in Brno. He backed that up with a couple of second places in the sprint and the Grand Prix. Second, of course, he was on the grid in Assen. Was second in the sprint behind his teammate Ralph Fernandez. And he went on to famously become the first Japanese rider in 22 long years to taste victory in the MotoGP World Championship. So from his 2 previous front row starts, double podiums have followed for Agura. Can he make some big inroads into that 14-point deficit to Jorge Martin?
This is the tyre allocation. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone goes for the medium rear in this Tissot sprint. We had Ralph Fernandez saying earlier on in Park Fermé to Jack after qualifying second that it wasn't exactly 100% which tyre option that they would go for the sprint this afternoon. 10 laps ahead of us, but even over 10 laps at the kind of pace and the kind of intensity of a Tissot sprint, you do really eat into your tyres around this Silverstone circuit with so many high-load, high-speed corners that it really do wear away the edge of the tyre. So tyre choice will be fascinating to see which route they all go for ahead of the sprint. Bezzecchi was the only rider in pre-practice 2 this morning who did his work on the medium rear, as everyone else focused on the soft.
They've been hard to call this year, haven't they, Tissot sprints? We've had 6 different sprint winners. We have 11 different riders on sprint podiums in our opening 11 Grand Prix. Can the likes of Ayagura and Fabio Di Giannantonio become our 12th a different sprint winner? Tomorrow we could have our 12th successive different winner in the British Grand Prix. All of our candidates on the front row of the grid, Martin, Fernandez and Agura, could keep that dream run going. Fabio Di Giannantonio as well. Marco Bezzecchi 5th on the grid, of course. He was our most recent of those 11 different winners in 11 visits to the British Grand Prix. Rather cheekily behind Iker Lecuona, trying to save some fuel here, maximise any kind of impact on fuel consumption. Are the KTMs of Brad Binder and Pedro Acosta. We have to mention actually the quite brilliant Iker Lecuona replacing Fermin Aldeguer at Gresini Ducati for his second replacement ride this season. He did an outstanding job, didn't he, in the Grand Prix to finish 7th, replacing Alex Marquez in Hungary. Well, Iker Lecuona this morning in Q2, second to Frankie Morbidelli, he was in Q1. He starts 10th on the grid, he heads the 4th row. His best qualifying in MotoGP since the Algarve Grand Prix 5 years ago, back in 2021. There's been only one time in his MotoGP career, in his 39th start, the 26-year-old Spaniard has started higher when he was 8th on the grid at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Misano in 2021. He's been some super sub so far this year, was Iker?
Yeah, of course. It looks like his current Superbike teammate is heading our way into MotoGP for next season. That's another novel way of saving fuel on the way around by cutting out the Beckett sequence as they make their way around to the grid. But Lecuona certainly demonstrating that he's more than good enough to compete at this level. He impressed us anyway, didn't he, when he substituted back at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Remember, he finished 7th on that Sunday afternoon. Of course, there were 4 or 5 high-profile casualties ahead of him on the first lap, but you've got to be in it to win it. And if Lecuona can get home from this Tissot sprint in the points, it would be another fine effort.
Well, we're on board with a rider who's won 2 of our 3 previous sprints here at the British Grand Prix. That was Alex Marquez, looking ahead to his brother Marc Marquez, who is the most successful rider in the sprint era. Marc's success last time out at the Sachsenring was his 19th sprint victory, and he's our most successful sprint rider so far this year. Of those 6 who have collected gold medals so far this year, Marc Marquez 4 sprint wins so far in the campaign. His first coming at Goiânia in Brazil. Then he took the sprint victory in rather dramatic circumstances in our first ever flag-to-flag sprint in Jerez, and most recently from pole position he was the sprint winner in Hungary and the sprint winner last time out in the Sachsenring. Those are the sprint winners so far this season. Our Martin, a couple of sprint wins. He's our pole sitter, of course, here today. Raul Fernandez, a double sprint winner so far this year on the front row of the grid. Acosta, Alex Marquez and Bagnaia, our other sprint winners so far in 2026.
It's going to take something quite incredible and a major following wind for Pecco Bagnaia to win this afternoon's Tiso sprint. He was eliminated in qualifying 1 earlier on today. The 2-time MotoGP world champion, a season's low 16th place on the grid on a Ducati that he has not particularly enjoyed the feel of so far this weekend.
Yeah, some of our former, most recent British Grand Prix winners have toiled somewhat on the return from the summer break. Fabio Quartararo on pole here last year, should have really won last year's British Grand Prix, but he was over 5 seconds clear of the chasing pack when his rear ride height device failed on him. Well, Fabio Quartararo is 13th on the grid, and Enea Bastianini, a double win here in 2024. He's 19th on the Tech 3 KTM.
Here's the Olapriya front row then. Martin Fernandez Agura, and look at that, Fernandez going against the grain, it would appear at the moment, on the medium rear tyre. Gian Antonio, Bezzecchi and Marquez on the second row of the grid. Top 6 in the championship, starting the top 6 places. It's Alex Marquez, Morbidelli and Acosta on row 3. From Lecuona, Miller and Mia. Lecuona also on the medium rear tyre. Quartararo 13th from Diogo Moreira and Luca Marini. Bagnaia starts 16th, lowest of the season, ahead of Alex Rins and Brad Binder. We have Bastianini, Crutchlow and Podespargo on row 7, and completing the grid is Toprak Razgatioglu. So just to recall from the grid shot that we saw there, the only rider on the front 3 rows on the medium rear tyre at this stage is Raul Fernandez.
Well, he's been rolling back the years, he's been thrilling his home crowd, he's never lapsed Silverstone faster than here this weekend, replacing John Zark on the LCR Honda. Let's get the thoughts from Cal Crutchlow with Jack.
Yeah, it's been some weekend so far for Cal on home turf. You've got the double winner from 2 years ago, 1 place ahead of you, Factory Ducati on the row in front of you, and you've gone quicker this weekend than you ever have done around Silverstone. I guess you've been enjoying your British Grand Prix experience so far.
Yeah, it's definitely a wake-up call. Friday morning, I was thinking, surely they can't go this fast around this track, but no, pleased with how it's going. Pleasure to be able to ride here in Silverstone this weekend, and we'll try and give it our all.
Good luck, have fun.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Always great to hear from the 40-year-old Brit Cal Crutchlow. His best Friday yesterday in his 6 standing appearances so far for Gian Zarco. His stubbing might actually continue with Gian Zarco. Not expected back as Lucio Cecchinello confirmed with Jack this morning. LCR Honda boss not expected back by Mazzano at the earliest. So possible replacement rides coming up for Cal at Motorland Aragon later on this month, as Marco Bezzecchi then gets set to one lap pace. But how's he going to fare over 10 laps this afternoon and 20 laps tomorrow? Well, Alex Marquez has been a 2-time sprint winner here for Gresini in the past. He lines up 7th, and Iker Lecuona in the top 10. Something for Fermin Aldeguer. What a performance by the Spaniard. Let's get some thoughts from the boss, Michele Vicini with Jack.
Yeah, mixed emotions, I imagine, this morning in qualifying for Michele. Of course, Alex, one of the big favourites coming into the weekend. Was there some frustration that he didn't get the maximum out of qualifying?
Yeah, he did just a little mistake at turn 15 in his fastest lap. But anyway, we'll try to recover as much position as possible after the start, and try to reach some more data from tomorrow, because it will be the most important things, the race of tomorrow. And so in the other part, I'm really happy to have Iker in Q2 and made the top 10 on the grid, and I think that we can make a great sprint today.
I was going to say, just explain to everyone at home how difficult it is to jump from a World Superbike to a MotoGP bike, but then to put it inside the top 10. These are the best in the world, but he's done it again. An incredible job by Iker.
Yeah, it's true. It's incredible how he adapt. He managed not only the MotoGP machine, but only the Michelin tires. a different layout, because the last time he rode in Silverstone was 2019, I think. And so I think that so he deserves a huge applause to him from his job, and I think that he also still giving to us and to the engineer a lot of data to compare with the other rider, because in most part of the track is aligned with the top Ducati rider, and so I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, great job. Hopefully it continues. Thanks, Michele.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Gresini boss Michele Massini. Nicola Corner's last appearance actually at the British Grand Prix was another sub-ride. He was replacing Alex Rins at LCR here back in 2023. His best ever result here in MotoGP was a 7th place in 2021 when he was on the Tech 3 KTM, one of only 7 top 10s in his MotoGP career. He's got a cracking chance of bettering that potentially here tomorrow, has Iker. Super sub once again, top 10 he was, replacing Alex Marquez in Balaton, and he will fancy another crack at the top 6 potentially this afternoon and over the full distance tomorrow.
Absolutely zero pressure on his shoulders this afternoon. Interesting that he's also gone for the medium rear tyre, it would appear, so perhaps getting the data potentially for himself, but also for his teammate Alex Marquez ahead of tomorrow's British Grand Prix. What about VR46 then, as we just before we head down to Jack, a special moment here on the grid as we honour Hall of Famer, the induction ceremony for Jeff Duke. That's his son Peter, who is accepting the award from MotoGP CEO Carmelo Espeleta, honouring another great from years gone past.
Yeah, we should just mention that before we do go down to Jack here. Jeff Duke, one of the greatest British riders in Grand Prix history, MotoGP World Champion 1951, 1953, 54 and 55. One of only 8 riders in Grand Prix history to win 4 or more Premier Class titles. Great to see the championship honouring some late greats from this part of the world. Barry Sheene was inducted into the Hall of Fame here on Thursday at a pre-event press conference in London. His son Freddie had the honour of accepting the medal for the Sheene family. So yeah, great to see Peter Duke there accepting the honour on behalf of his late father Jeff. So thanks for your patience, both Jack and Pablo Nieto from VR46. Down to you guys now.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. We're here on the second row of the grid, fronting it, the best non-Aprilia, Fabio Di Gianantonio. It feels as though those Noali bikes have got a little bit of a step on the Ducatis, Pablo. What can Fabio do?
Good question. We know that here Aprilia are very, very fast, very constant, so it's going to be hard, but anyway, we have to try to make our best. Really, really important first lap on the start, and then we will see, you know, but we know that here Aprilia can be a little bit better, but anyway, we are very close to them, and I think we can make a very good race.
Is there anywhere on track where Fabio or the Ducati can make a bit of an advantage on the Aprilia?
It's difficult, but anyway, I think the most important thing is try to make our own race, thinking in our race, and then when everything is more or less done, you know where you are, and then you know if you can attack, not, or whatever. It's going to be difficult, like always.
I'll take that sigh as a no. Good luck, Pablo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Pablo Nieto from VR46. Fabio Di Gianantonio has collected a bunch of medals so far this season. He's been in the Parc Fermé celebrations at the end of a sprint 4 times in the last 6 Grand Prix. A whole bunch of bronzes, though, for him. 3rd in Catalonia, 3rd in Mugello, 3rd most recently in Assen and in Germany. Superfark Trackhouse, Aprilia, though, are enjoying a fantastic period, aren't they, right now in the championship? Both Iger and Ralph Fernandez, title contenders, both of them on the front row of the grid and looking for sprint success coming up shortly. Let's get the thoughts of their boss, Davide Brivio, with Jack.
Yeah, tyre change for Iagura in front of us. Still no rear tyre for Ralph Fernandez. Davide, with 7 minutes to go before the warm-up lap, what are your riders doing?
We're still thinking about Raul. Because we would like to go on a medium. Now everybody's on soft, and so we are deciding now. Yeah, Augura will go on soft, same as everybody else, and yeah, let's see.
Regardless of the tyres, you guys have got a great opportunity here. How do you rate their chances?
Yeah, I think Raul has been fast since Friday morning. He feels quite comfortable. He's quite confident, honestly, on the race. And so let's see. I pick up a good pace, especially by the end of the qualifying. He needs to understand how strong he can be compared to the other riders in terms of a pace. But with both riders, we start, I mean, of course, starting from the first row, we try to play our cards and try to go for a good result. But of course, we know in this track it's not so important I mean, it's not a big handicap if you start a little bit behind. So it's not a big disadvantage. So we can expect riders recovery also from lower positions. So let's see. Let's try to enjoy. But I hope we can be in a fight.
Absolutely. Looks like a decision has been made with Raul. Tyre has gone in the back. I'll try to find out what it is.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. It's actually a soft rear tyre. We can confirm. We've seen it on screens here. So Raul Fernandez is no longer the outlier ahead of this Tissot sprint. He has, as Davide Brivio said, we've got cars to play. Well, Fernandez has played one of them. He has joined the best of the field and gone on to that soft rear tyre. Ayagura then, just 2 sprint podiums to his name. Second in Brno, second in Assen. Alongside him on that front row of the grid is a rider in Jorge Martin, who's got 34 sprint medals. He's a serial winner in this format, isn't he? Jorge Martin was so critical this phase of the weekend when he went on to be crowned world champion in 2024. And can Marco Bezzecchi steady the ship after a real tough period prior to the summer break? Of course, he was missing from the entire race schedule at the Sachsenring after the Q2 crash. He hasn't been on the sprint podium since a 3rd place in Balaton. He has not scored a single Sunday Grand Prix point since that victory in front of his home crowd in Mugello.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? His sprints have been the weaknesses, but his only points in the last 4 races have been in sprints. Can he chase down the podium, and can Jorge Martin cash in from pole position? Paolo Benoros with Jack.
Yeah, Aprilia riders 1st and 5th, but as we came into the day, maybe the opposite way round of what everyone was expecting. Firstly, with Marco, middle of the 2nd row, we've just heard Davide say, this circuit, it isn't that much of a disadvantage being further down on the grid, so does Marco still have a chance of winning the sprint today?
To be honest, we hope that he can manage the race in his best way, because we know he's not at 100%. And it's necessary to fight with the pain. To be honest, we will be very, very, very happy if he can finish in the top 5.
What did you do with Jorge overnight? Because he looks a different rider today.
Nothing. He is a fully talented rider with something, as you have seen this morning during the free practice 2 in the aerodynamics. He felt better and he used it for the qualifying. So he chose the new development because he understood that he can give to him a potential advantage.
Is he racing with it?
You can okay. Check when the tire warmer will come off.
I'll have a look. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks as always to Aprilia boss Paolo Bonora. Yes, on pole position here at the British Grand Prix, but not higher than 5th in the last 4 sprints as Jorge Martin, podiumless on a Saturday afternoon since his 2nd place in Mugello. So it looks like our latest tyre information is that Ikaleko owner Jack Miller and Brad Binder, that trio then are going for the medium rear tyre in this sprint. Let's go down for a Jorge Martin update then from pole position with Jack.
Yeah, Paolo told me to have a look, and look, I did. Jorge Martin, the only Aprilia rider to race that brand new aerodynamics package that they introduced today.
Thanks, Jack, and why wouldn't it? Because it was that brand new aero package which carried him to the fastest ever Grand Prix lap around this magnificent 5.9 kilometre Silverstone circuit, a 1:56.160 this morning, securing Martin his 22nd MotoGP pole position, the 19th pole position for Aprilia. So here's your front row of the grid then, as we get the action back underway after the summer break. Title contender, 14 points back in 2nd place in the overall standings, is Japan's The summer holidays are over. The wait is finally over. MotoGP is back, and it has been back in spectacular fashion at one of its most spectacular venues. It's the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, Chapter 12 in the 2026 MotoGP World Championship campaign. It has been already a memorable weekend for Aprilia, with Jorge Martin securing pole position in record-breaking fashion in Q2 this morning, a record-breaking 1:56.160, just edging out Ralf Fernandez in that battle for our 12th pole position of the campaign. It is an all Aprilia front row of the grid for the third time in the last 6 Grand Prix. Martin leads away, Ralf Fernandez and Ayagura. Your top 6 riders in the World Championship standings are your top 6 on the grid here for this 10-lap Tissot sprint, as now the second half of this World Championship campaign is about to get underway. The title chase, well, it is now well and truly underway, isn't it? 24 points is the narrow margin, splitting 5 riders as we kick off part 2 in 2026. Fabio Di Gianantonio, just off that graphic, is the 5th of our series title contenders. Ralf Fernandez, 6th place. Pedro Acosta, 7th. Pecco Bagnaia still within a great shout of being world champion this year. But it's all eyes on the Aprilias of Martin and Agura in particular on that front row, your top 2 in the World Championship. Marc Marquez, 3rd in the standings after winning 3 of our last 4 Grand Prix in Balaton, Brno, and most recently at the Sachsenring. Marc just 18 points back then now of fellow Spaniard Jorge Martin.
Just how bold and how aggressive will Marc Marquez be on this opening lap? Surely that is his best opportunity to get in amongst and disrupt the Aprilias that are expecting to fight it out at the front of the field. We've already seen in sprints this year, which Marc Marquez has won more than anyone else. He has been particularly dynamic on the first lap.
Ducati protecting an undefeated sprint record here at Silverstone. 2023 sprint winner Alex Marquez, 2024 sprint winner Enea Bastianini, 2025 sprint winner Alex Marquez, all on board Ducatis. Alex Marquez, if he is to make it a hat-trick of sprint wins here in front of the British fans, he's going to have to do it the hard way. He heads to the 3rd row of the grid in 7th place. He's got Morbidelli and Acosta for company on that 3rd row. Morbidelli coming through as the quickest rider out of Q1 this morning. There's confirmation on your screens that Ducati are unbeaten in the sprint format here at Silverstone. That proud record, though, is under major threat over the upcoming 10 laps here at Silverstone. 6 different sprint winners so far this season. The most wins, Marc Marquez on 4. We've had 11 different riders on Sprint Saturday so far this year. Can the likes of Ayagura and Fabio Di Gianantonio, 3rd and 4th respectively on the grid, take their first sprint win? Can they pick up 12 hugely important World Championship points? As it stands, it's Martin in the ascendancy, 14 points clear of Agura in the World Championship. Both of them alongside each other on the front row of the grid. Green flag then clears at the back. Lights out, we're racing once again in 2026 here. The sprint underway at Silverstone. Brilliant start from pole position by Jorge Martin. He's going to get the drop on the field as they run through. Albi Fernandez going the wrong way. The Di Gianantonio already picked him off the 3rd place. So Ralf Fernandez now, look at Bezzecchi around the outside through Farm. Bezzecchi super aggressive. He's upward in P4.
Yeah, Marc Marquez is going to go around the outside, even though Marquez will have the inside now for the loop, and he's making contact there, it looked like, with Marco Bezzecchi, trying to force his way past the 72, but Bez flexing his muscles and hanging on.
Oh, it's been a shocker this for Fernandez. Started 2nd, he's already been pushed and barged back to 6th place. Under attack now down the Wellington Straight from Alex Marquez, 2-time sprint winner here at Silverstone in the past.
I think Cal Crutchlow's gone down. Yeah, confirmation he has. Yellow flags are out in the 1st sector, and Cal Crutchlow was the only rider not to complete it. The home favourite is down.
So it's Martin from pole that leads the field through Lovefield for the first time. Chasing him, Agura and Di Gianantonio seeking their first ever sprint gold medals. We go through the high-speed Woodcote for the first time. Now it's the blind entry Cops, and Di Gianantonio just thought about showing Agura his front wheel. There was a they went into turn 9.
Crutchlow has rejoined the race, but he is way down the back of the field. Marc Marquez is coming under pressure now from Ralph Fernandez. So rather than looking ahead, Marc Marquez looks like he might be fighting a rearguard action soon from the recovering Aprilia.
Fernandez got a lot of work to do recovering. He didn't get a bad start, but he got really beaten up. Bezzecchi just rode around the outside, and then he going through farm curve for the third time of asking. As the field and the lead group power out of Chapel, down the hanger straight up to 5th, 6th gear here. Martin with clear road ahead of him. Here comes Marc Marquez, a long, long way back on Marco Bezzecchi. He seized the initiative, there was room, and he took it. Marc Marquez then now up into P4.
He must have got a heck of a run through Beckett's, because he was nowhere near Bezzecchi on the run into Maggotts, Beckett's and Chapel, but obviously got the momentum out of it and managed to slipstream him down into Stowe Corner, and now it's Bezzecchi who might have pressure from Ralph Fernandez in 5th and 6th.
Bagnaia up 1 place from 16th to 15th. Ika Lecuona was briefly holding himself. I was just going to say, Lecuona's crash, he was running inside the top 10. He's gone down at Vale, so Lecuona's not going to be finishing inside the top 10 after a strong start. Here comes Digia then. Di Gianantonio attacking Agura into turn 3, but Agura's going to now drop across the nose of the Ducati as we go through the loop, and now Aintree, some battle. This will be playing into the hands, though, won't it, of Jorge Martin, who could be breaking away at the front of this sprint.
Yeah, Agura saw that one coming a mile off, just let Di Gianantonio take it, because he knew he'd run wide in the process, and ducks back underneath him on the way through. Marc Marquez looking to join that battle now, although he's a little bit hot into Brooklands.
Oh, yeah, he's almost out of the car park there, isn't he, Marc Marquez, just praying for that Ducati to stop going into the heavy braking zone for turn 6. Bezzecchi wasn't close enough, though, to reclaim that 4th place. There's disappointment for Lecuona then, who at that stage was in 10th place. Did he get a little bit of a helping hand from the ever-aggressive Frankie Morbidelli? His body language certainly suggests that he feels that there was maybe a tap from Frankie. Those two are going to be potential factory Ducati World Superbike teammates in 2027. I mean, Frankie dragged Lecuona around to a Q2 lap time in Q1 this morning, but no favours on this occasion.
Morbidelli was down there himself last year, wasn't he? The incident that brought the red flag out at the early purge of the Grand Prix with Aleix Espargaro. So Martin's advantage is around half a second, so not too much damage was done for Agura with that little battle with Gianantonio. The gap was pretty much what it was at the end of the first sector. Then it's Marc Marquez, Bezzecchi and Ralph Fernandez. Alex Marquez looks to try and make some forward progress as he sits 7th ahead of Pedro Acosta.
Bagnaia's found himself back down in 16th place. He did pick up a couple of places early on. The incident involving Morbidelli and Lecuona is currently under investigation. It was clear from Lecuona's body language exactly what he made of that particular incident.
Yeah, so here's the start of the race then. So we're looking for Ralph Fernandez, aren't we, up ahead of us. That was the contact we saw in the first lap between Marc Marquez and Marco Bezzecchi. And Ralph Fernandez at that stage, of course, already behind them, having had his pocket picked on the way through turn 2.
That could have been disaster for Marc Marquez. So easy there for that front tyre to get tangled up with the rear of that factory Aprilia, getting dragged down to the tarmac. So thankfully the world champion still upright and still operating in a strong 4th place. I think a top 5 at the end of the sprint and Grand Prix here this weekend in Silverstone will be a very good outcome for Marc Marquez. Further back, Fernandez comes under pressure once again from Alex Marquez, but the Aprilia rider just too strong on the brakes in the Brooklands. This is turn 6.
Well, you gave mention already in the weekend to the Magnificent 7, who've looked like the 7 riders that have got the superior pace here this weekend, and that is what we're seeing, because they're pulling clear now of Pedro Acosta, who runs in 8th place already, the thick end of a second back in 8th. He's already looking quite lonely in that second from the back of the points positions. Only Joan Mir behind him in those points positions in 9th, with Morbidelli detached himself in a lonely 10th.
It looks like already early on, only on lap 3 of 10, that Bezzecchi maybe already suffering a little bit physically wise. We've seen him deliver brilliant 1 lap so far. Frankie Morbidelli, no further action taken, so Simon Crafar and Co had a good look at that one. Frankie Morbidelli cleared, not guilty of any offence or instigating contact, which caused the Lecuona crash, so free to race and try and get himself back into point scoring contention is Frankie. Yeah, but Bezzecchi has not been able to go with Marc Marquez, has he? He's got it all on to try and hold on to this 5th place with Fernandez and Alex Marquez in this case. Paul Bernard did say a top 5 would be a brilliant result for Bez.
Gura's matching Martin for pace at the moment, not getting too much closer to him at this stage. Betseki's good though, isn't he, in this final sector? We've seen it all weekend, and he was able to pull a little bit of time back on Marc Marquez as they make their way into Vale. So lap 3 of 10 completed, and the top 3 are in the 57s, the group behind them in the low 58s, and it looks like we're going to have a 3-way fight at the front for the podium positions.
Yeah, Costa got a kicking on that last lap. He was right on the rear. He was 6 tenths behind Alex Marquez at the end of lap 2. He lost another 6 tenths and a little bit more on that last lap. Costa himself found himself back in the 159s. Been struggling with a bit of front end vibration, a bit of front end chatter, which is an unusual issue, an unusual gremlin for Acosta. And somebody's now gone down at turn 4.
Ralph Fernandez.
Oh, it is Fernandez. Fernandez is tumbling down the order. Well, it was a terrible first lap from second on the grid, and that is crucial in terms of the World Championship. So Ralph Fernandez, was he just getting a little bit frustrated, a little bit impatient, stuck behind Marco Bezzecchi's factory Aprilia? Ralph Fernandez then washing out the front into turn 4. That's Neil Platt on sprint Saturday at Silverstone for the Spaniard.
Yeah, a big blow with the top 2 in the World Championship, currently first and second, with Martin leading Nagura. Martin stretching this out on this, the 4th lap of 10. The gap now up to 7 tenths of a second to Agura, and I think Gian Antonio is quite keen to clear the Japanese.
As you can see, Cal Crutchlow, unfortunately for the British fans, has pitted. That's a shame for Cal Crutchlow. Will be looking to put on a show for his home crowd. Jorge Martin, he has been in this position so many times in the past. He's looking to equal Marc Marquez's record of 19 sprint victories, looking to equal Marc Marquez's record of 35 sprint podiums, and this would be stretching his advantage in the World Championship, potentially out to 17 points going into tomorrow's British Grand Prix.
3-way fight then for 4th place. Marc Marquez, Marco Bezzecchi, and now Alex Marquez promoted to 6th after the crash of Ralph Fernandez. So Marc Marquez, unless anything happens up ahead of him, a 4th is as good as he can expect in this T-Shirt sprint, although that wouldn't be a bad result at all, given how this weekend has been going. I think Marc Marquez would quite happily settle for that. But we still have an awful long way to go in this, and Martin did stretch it out with the fastest lap of the sprint on a 57.6. His lead is 7 tenths now.
Yeah, he's getting on with this, looking really impressive, isn't he, Jorge Martin? He came into Silverstone still with an element of doubt about his pace and his potential, as Marco Bezzecchi was just getting a little bit scrappy through the first couple of corners. Martin's had so many issues with a lack of front-end feeling on the factory Aprilia pre-summer breaks. He lost all kind of confidence. Well, he has got it back, and he has got it back big time. 57.607, fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Pole position and looking locked and loaded for a record-equaling sprint success here. Bezzecchi doing an outstanding job to somehow keep the charging Alex Marquez behind him. Some ride this by Bez, clinging on to that 5th spot.
Yeah, the good news for Bezzecchi, if he does start to feel the pain and the fatigue later on, is that this big gap is opening up behind this trio that he's in, sandwiched between the Marquez brothers. It's now 2.2 seconds back to Pedro Acosta in 7th place. So there's a strong top 6 at the very least here for Marco Bezzecchi if he can keep it on the road.
We're only on lap 5 of 10, half sprint distance. You could already see there from Bezzecchi's onboard the wheel spin that Alex Marquez, he was lighting up that rear tyre, wasn't he, going through Woodcote. Now here comes Bezzecchi. Well, he's not defending, he's going on the front foot here. He's on the offensive as the 72. Brilliant move to seize 4th place from Mark going into the Maggots and Beckett's complex. So when we thought he was going to be all on to hang on to 5th, he's going forward now, Bez, back up into P4. Brilliant stuff.
It's the beauty of this Silverstone circuit, isn't it, that you can just turn defence into attack, and the corner speed of that Aprilia, Bezzecchi was able to just get such a slingshot off of Copse. That was essentially where the move was made. He got the run out of Copse, and he was practically ahead of Marc Marquez before they even arrived at Maggots, and look at him, streaking clear now.
Martin will be the thick end of a second clear of Iagura at the end of this lap 5 of 10. Will be over half sprint distance. Yeah, you can see Alex Marquez is already getting wheel spin on the Gresini Ducati, and then this is brilliant by Marco Bezzecchi. That is some ballsy move there to pass Marc Marquez on that fast run down to Maggots and Beckett's. I mean, that is a 5th gear sweep there at almost 280 kilometres an hour. Digia has been dropped by the 2 Aprilias ahead of him, hasn't he? Fabio Di Gianantonio did a 158.9 on that last lap. That was opposed to a 158.3 for Martin, a 158.2 from Agura. It looks like the Gianantonio sprint victory hopes have evaporated.
Yeah, Agura responding to the pace of Martin and taking a 10th and a half out of him, back down to half a second. So we're now got a battle between the Marquez brothers for 5th and 6th. We're on board with the younger brother Alex now, who's won 2 of the 3 Tixo sprints. Doesn't look like he's going to win a 3rd though.
Ralph Fernandez has decided to call it quits. He's pitted on the track out of Aprilia. There he is, just pulling into pits. Well, a missed opportunity for the Spaniard as Alex starts to charge towards Mark's rear tyre. 73 versus 93. Looks like Marc Marquez is suffering with a bit of rear grip problems here, and Alex just eases on through. He made that look so easy as they came through Woodcote.
And Marco Bezzecchi is going to potentially be staring at a bronze medal here because he's eating into the gap ahead of him up to Gian Antonio. You mentioned Gian Antonio's pole lap last time around. His next one isn't much better either. At the start of this lap, Gian Antonio was 1.7 seconds ahead of Marco Bezzecchi. It's already under a second.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a sluggish lap by Digi. It was compared to Martin and Aguirre ahead of him, but he was one of only 3 riders in the 58s on that last lap, but he was 7/10 slower than Aguirre. And now Bezzecchi, well, this would be gold, a bronze medal. It would feel like a gold, wouldn't it, given where he has been over the last few weeks or so. If Marco Bezzecchi can somehow wrestle that Aprilia to a sprint podium, what a bonus result that would be. Is Aguirre just sort of starting to threaten a bit of a recovery here? The gap's 0.6 of a second between him and the Martinator. Further down, Pecco Bagnaia is taken 16 from Bastianini. That's nowhere near what we expected from those 2 hot Italians.
Yeah, some of these Ducatis are losing pace, hand over fist. A 59.4 for Gian Antonio. He lost 1.2 seconds to Bezzecchi on the last lap. And Alex Marquez was passing Marc Marquez and did a 59.2. Marc Marquez, who's in the 2 minutes on the last lap. He's the slowest rider in the top 10 now.
Yeah, you could see it a couple laps ago already. Alex Marquez was getting big wheel spin, lacking drive grip and traction through 9 and 10. And now Fabio Gian Antonio, well, he's sinking like a stone here, isn't he? Digi has got some serious trouble. I was going to say, it looks like he might be on course for a 5th bronze medal in the last 7 sprints to be getting sick of the sights of 3rd place, but right now he would certainly take a 3rd place because Bezzecchi's all over him. Marco Bezzecchi is going to be taking a stunning 3rd place here very, very shortly. Gian Antonio's a passenger sitting, look at this, he got on the power coming out of Lovefield. The rear tyre just spun up.
Yeah, it's almost like he's in a different formula, different category here. Marco Bezzecchi, that's the easiest move he'll ever make into Kopp's corner. And Gian Antonio with absolutely nothing to defend with. Marco Bezzecchi up into 3rd place.
Well, at the moment, Digi must feel like he's riding on ice. Must feel like he's riding on marbles. He's got no rear grip whatsoever. I mean, he might be dropping back into the clutches of Alex Marquez very, very soon. Gian Antonio was doing mid-59s. I mean, the Ducati pace has just fallen off a cliff. They've got absolutely nothing for the Aprilias. Marco Bezzecchi just streaking away now on the Aprilias. He powers out of Chapel. Look at this, he only passed Fabio Gian Antonio 2 or 3 corners ago, and now Marco Bezzecchi is going to be about, what, half a second clear?
Yeah, Marc Marquez is reversing back towards Pedro Acosta. Remember when I said that that top 6 group were just miles clear and that they weren't going to get caught? Well, Marc Marquez has hit reverse gear, and Pedro Acosta, his future teammate, is about to catch him for 6th place.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time we saw Marc Marquez suffering this much in the sprint format when he sort of wasn't carrying any kind of significant injury? I mean, this is as fit and as strong as Marc has been at any stage so far in 2026, but at the moment he just does not have any kind of pace. He can't get back in the 59s, can Marc Marquez. That last lap was a 2:00.459. Pedro Acosta only 0.8 behind his future factory Ducati claim. Well, this is not certain that Marc Marquez will be hanging on to 8th here because Joan Mir also starting to charge towards him on the factory Honda. Mir's doing high 59s.
Yeah, Marc Marquez, the only riders that are slower at the moment than Marc Marquez are Pecco Bagnaia, his teammate, who's down in 17th, plus Augusto Fernandez and Toprak Razgatlioglu, plus Pol Espargaro, the Tech 3 KTM. They're the only riders at the moment going slower than the reigning world champion.
Oh, look how nervous that factory Ducati was as Marc grabbed a handful of brake going into turn 6. That's Brooklands. It was a real twitch, and it was a nervous on the front end there, wasn't it, as he tried to get the bike stopped into that turn 6. Here comes Alex Marquez then. I mean, he looks like the quickest
exception to the rule, isn't he?
the quickest of the Ducatis that are still sort of anywhere near the podium battle here. Well, it looks like it is going to be for sure, and all a pretty lockout. Martin is comfortably covering off and holding at bay Aguirre in 2nd place. On that last lap, they both exchange 1:58.9s. Aguirre just can't get within half a second, 0.6 of a second of the Spaniard.
Now that advantage has doubled already on this lap. Martin through the third sector, 1.2 seconds clear, so he's got Ayagura firmly under control. Martin has now got 2.5 laps to cruise home, it seems, from here for what would be a third sprint win of the year, and of course to increase his World Championship lead.
Yeah, and it would put him level with Marc Marquez on 19 sprint wins, level with Marc Marquez on 35 sprint podiums, and this does feel like something of a statement performance by Jorge Martin. Winless in the sprint format since the French Grand Prix in Le Mans. He has not had a sprint podium since Mugello when he was second, and now here is Acosta, who's all over the rear tyre of Marc Marquez. Marquez then through Club Corner, who is just a sitting duck. Mir's going to get him. Mir's going to get him very, very quickly. I mean, look at there is Juan Mir not too far behind. Look, Marc Marquez on that last lap did a 2:00.743. He lost another 8/10 to Acosta. This is easy as you like, surely, for Acosta. He's got to be careful. Doesn't want to instigate any kind of contact because clearly he's got by far the superior pace. Just had to pick his moment because there's nothing that Marc Marquez can do. When was the last time you saw Marc Marquez, the reigning world champion, this defenseless, fighting without any tools at his disposal at all?
Yeah, he is, going 1.5 seconds a lap slower than the race leader Martin, who's now comfortably the fastest rider on track, doing 59.3. Agura's now dropped into the 2 minutes himself. Acosta's just got to be clever here and be patient because the gap will just come to him, the position will just come to him, but of course he has to be wary of Juan Mir zooming up behind them too.
Just see how Marc was having to pick the bike up there just to try and get the catch on the fat part of the tyre, just to try and pick up any kind of grip, whatever grip he's got left on that fading soft rear tyre. Have to say, somehow he's keeping Acosta at bay, but again, just the rear tyre squirming underneath him, and with no effort whatsoever, Acosta just blitzes through on the factory Ducati rider. Marc Marquez is going to be ending this sprint potentially down in 8th place, just 2 points going the way of the reigning world champion, who's had a real tough run. He got as high as 4th place very early on, but he's going the wrong way at the moment.
Going the right way, although it is his brother Alex Marquez now up the inside of Fabio Gian Antonio into Stowe corner. Alex Marquez now up into 4th place. Mir up the inside of Marc Marquez, who's going to fight it. Of course he's going to fight it. He knows no other way, but he hasn't got the grip to fight with.
Marc Marquez has had more grip on his dirt bike back at home when he's training in Spain. He's got absolutely nothing left. He's completely at the mercy of that soft rear tyre right now. Big gulp of water from Gigi Dell'Igna because Marc Marquez just has nothing left from that rear tyre. Now Frankie Morbidelli is going to pick him off very, very quickly. I mean, that will drop Marc Marquez. We're on the last lap of this sprint. He's got about, 5.9 kilometres to somehow try and defend. He might drop down to 9th place. Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing underneath him. He is riding on ice, sheet ice.
And this is gold dust for Jorge Martin. If you think of the World Championship situation, Martin's on course for 12 points here. Marc Marquez, if Frankie Morbidelli passes him, will only score 1, and that would put Jorge Martin 29 points clear of Marc Marquez. It's 18 when the sprint began.
Just want to see if there's any signs of graining or significant wear on the side of Marc Marquez's rear tyres. We look at him going through Brooklands. I mean, can't recall the last time we saw Marc so defenceless on the factory Ducati. Has he ever been fighting with so little in the arsenal? Jorge Martin, though, well, this has been some sprint Saturday. This has been some return from his summer break. He's through Magnussen Beckett, approaching it for the final time. This has been another masterclass, a start-to-finish sprint success incoming for Jorge Martin. It will be his 19th sprint victory, but significantly in the World Championship. Yeah, Marc Marquez has been picked off by Frankie Morbidelli, so now he's back in 9th place. Can Diogo Moreira close in? I think he might be too far back, but Moreira's 8/10 behind Marc Marquez, but Marc Marquez could be salvaging just 1 single point at the end of what has ultimately been a dramatic sprint, but all the dramas unfolded behind Jorge Martin, who is cruising to his record-equaling 19 sprint success. He's going to increase his lead in the MotoGP World Championship. He's on course for his 3rd sprint win of the campaign. What a sprint Saturday has been for Martin as he powers the factory Aprilia over the line from pole position. Jorge Martin takes his 19th sprint victory. Ayagura has to settle for 2nd place. That's now 3 sprint 2nd places in the last 4. Where is Marc Marquez going to take the checker flag? He just about holds on to the final point scoring place in 9th. Another lap, and Marc Marquez was going to be outside the top 15. He held off Diogo Moreira by 0.02 of a second. Marc Marquez almost on that final lap was in the 2:03s. Jorge Martin then takes the checkered flag, victorious by 1.5 seconds. It never really looked like he was in any doubt once he got the whole shot after a dream start from pole position into the first corner. It is 3 second places, 3 silver medals in the last 4 sprints for Ayagura. Marco Bezzecchi, well, that's brilliant. And Bez takes third in the sprint, and he takes third place back from Marc Marquez in the World Championship. What a fillip, what a boost that is for Marco Bezzecchi. Alex Marquez is the pick of the fading Ducatis in fourth. The Gian Antonio drops back to fifth after he spent so much of that sprint in the bronze medal position. Acosta completes your top 6. There are points for Mia Morbidelli, and somehow there's 1 point going the way of Marc Marquez, who was hanging on for dear life at the end of that sprint. How significant could that 1 point prove to be in the final reckoning?
I mean, that's Marc Marquez's situation, and that's why, part of the reason why he was plummeting down the order. But let's not get it twisted. Without a Raul Fernandez crash today, we would have probably had a comfortable Aprilia 1, 2, 3, 4. What a show of strength we've seen from the Nuali brand today, and weaknesses for Ducati, in particular for Marc Marquez. That was Frankie Morbidelli passing him on the final lap. A sprint that Marc Marquez pretty much spent from start to finish being overtaken.
Morbidelli nearly ran into the back of Marc going through Woodcote there. That was the speed differential between the two Ducatis. I mean, Frankie Morbidelli would have had to, I mean, he would never have come off on Marc Marquez riding so slowly in a sprint nor a Grand Prix in his life. I mean, that is actually a pretty good salvage job by Marc to still keep himself in the point scoring positions, despite the fact that on the last lap, the only rider that was slower than Marc was Toprak Razgatlioglu, who did a 2:04.4. 4.61. I don't think Marc Marquez has ever been so relieved to have seen a checkered flag in his MotoGP career, because if that finish line was 5 meters further up the road, he would have lost the point scoring place. Moreira almost got him. But another lap, Binder, Marini, Miller, Quartararo was certainly going to get him.
To punish Marc Marquez and Ducati today.
Great job, grandissimo lavoro, bravi.
Grandissimo, bravo. Aprilia celebrating another milestone. They've had so many already, haven't they, in 2026. For the first time in their history, they lock out the podium in the sprint. Martin Agura Bezzecchi, outstanding performance that by Marco Bezzecchi, absolutely sensational. Well, the inquest will start inside the factory Ducati garage and with the Michelin technicians. Looks like there's a lot of excessive wear, doesn't it, particularly on the shoulders of that Michelin tyre. Also, the front looks like it's completely destroyed itself as well, doesn't it? The hard front. A lot of number crunching to be done at Ducati overnight, because they were nowhere near the Aprilias at the checkered flag. Alex Marquez was almost 7 seconds behind the sprint winner, Jorge Martin. He had no tyre woes whatsoever. It was a cruise. It was a stroll in the Silverstone Saturday sunshine, wasn't it, for Jorge Martin? Congratulations to the World Championship leader. 17 points then now as his buffer over Agura in the World Championship.
Very interesting looking at the lap times on the last lap. The fastest rider on the last lap was Brad Binder. Remember, he started on the medium rear tyre, so clearly the soft was being chewed up around this high speed and high intensity circuit. Agura straight away looking at his rear tyre. He managed to nurse his home for a comfortable second and only loses 3 points to his title rival Jorge Martin today.
It's pretty obvious. Martin and Agura both immediately, once they jumped off their Aprilias, had a good long glare at the rear tyre. So they were obviously managing fading rear grip. They just ran into nothing like the issues that some of the Ducatis did further behind them. What a day for Aprilia. A record-breaking pole position this morning from Jorge Martin. A podium lockout with Martin Agura and the heroic Marco Bezzecchi. Let's get some thoughts from Paolo Bonora, Jack.
Paolo, what a day for Aprilia. First ever sprint podium lockout. Just magnificent.
Absolutely, and it is a particularly important today because we have seen a very strong org, starting from the pole position, making a very consistent race pace. But we have also to thank, it is obvious, org, but to thank also Marco for the energy, the power that he put, and because of the pain, he is able to finish the race in the podium. So thanks a lot to both of them.
Congrats.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks Paolo Bonoro, thanks Jack. Marco Bezzecchi getting off his factory Aprilia like he's a 77-year-old, not a 27-year-old. He is hurting, he is suffering. No pain, no gain is the old cliche. There was probably a lot of pain, but there was plenty of gain as Marco Bezzecchi then takes what is just his third sprint podium of the campaign. It's his equal best sprint finish of the season, matching his third in both Le Mans and in Hungary. He quite rightly has taken the credit of it. He's in tears. That one has been brutal. That was a real tough 10 laps for Marco Bezzecchi. He's got to do it twice the distance, over 20 laps tomorrow. But his team know that he put everything into it. He put his heart and his soul into that third place. And Marco Bezzecchi, third in that sprint, and he does take third place in the World Championship away from Marc Marquez.
Well, hopefully from Marco Bezzecchi's point of view, he's drawn a line now under what's happened in the last 4 Grand Prix as he's embraced by his teammate Jorge Martin. He's had so much adversity, some that he's brought on himself and some that's been out of his control. That's his mother there that he's sharing a moment with. But no one can say today that Marco Bezzecchi couldn't cope with adversity.
Yeah, and just a reminder, once again, we know that these guys, they produce superhuman heroics on the fastest motorcycles in the world, but when all's said and done, they are human beings who just happen to be supremely talented on motorcycles. That's what it means to Marco Bezzecchi. Fabio Di Giannantonio, one of several high-profile Ducati riders who, from a very early part of that sprint, just had zero grip. Probably front and rear, certainly lacking rear grip. That's where Bez then secured his bronze medal. But there's going to be a major inquest, isn't there, with Ducati and Michelin later on this evening. Fabio Di Giannantonio, yeah, well, we will live to fight another day tomorrow. But like Marc Marquez, look at all the graining on the right-hand side of that rear tyre for Fabio Di Giannantonio. I mean, at one point, he was less than half a second behind Martin Aguirre in the fight for the win in that sprint. He took the checker flag over 8.5 seconds behind Martin. Clear evidence of just how much Digi was suffering late on.
A shrug there from Jorge Martin, who, well, I think will be fascinated when he finds out all the drama that was unfolding behind him in that sprint. It was a pretty comfortable and boring sprint from his point of view, as he draws level with Marc Marquez now for 19 sprint wins apiece since this era began. And well, he hasn't looked or talked or felt like a World Championship leader over the last few races, but he certainly looked like one today.
Marc Marquez's last lap, when he was fighting tooth and nail to cling on to that final point scoring place in 9th, it was 2.3 seconds slower than Jorge Martin's last lap. I mean, that's a chasm. That is such a massive difference in performance and lap time. Just, again, an indication of just how some of those Ducati riders were struggling, praying just to see the checker flag at the conclusion to that 10-lap sprint. A sprint that concludes with Marco Bezzecchi unable to hold back the tears. So often this year there's been tears of joy, there's been tears of anguish. That's a combination of both, tears of relief, tears of joy, as the Martin camp come to celebrate with him after what feels like a real big victory. Here is then Marco Bezzecchi, the hero of the hour here in that Silverstone sprint. Third place for Bez. Let's get his thoughts for Jack.
Marco, huge congratulations. We could see the emotion at the end of that sprint. Mentally, emotionally, physically, that's taken a lot out of you. Why does this result mean so much?
Yeah, it was a tough period, as you probably can imagine. So it was very important to come back and enjoy on the bike, and yeah, we made a very good job. It's difficult for me to say what I'm feeling right now, but I want to say just a massive thanks to
from the 27-year-old Italian. That was his 15th sprint podium, and I think it's fair to say it was probably the toughest one he has ever experienced. A bronze medal and 7 hugely important World Championship points. It was tight early on as he had this early battle with Marc Marquez and Ralph Fernandez. Ralph Fernandez started that sprint second, dropped back to as low as 6th place before he crashed out shortly after this first lap moment between Bez and Marc. At that stage, Marc Marquez had no idea of the troubles that he was going to encounter throughout that sprint, as he just completely ran out of rear grip in particular. It's a second place in the last 4 sprints for Ayagura. Very much championship game on for the Japanese star. Let's get his thoughts for Jack.
Yet another podium, yet more points. Job done.
Respond from a bruising sprint Saturday here. Marco Bezzecchi's been going through over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, as the two factory Aprilia stars digest their sprint together on the podium, as it's now time for the medal ceremony.
Yeah, we'll tidy up the full championship picture in a moment. For Jorge Martin, he extends his championship lead today to 17 points over Ayagura. And Marco Bezzecchi, well, he ends the day 27 back of his teammate and 2 ahead of Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez, Championship leader, showing exactly why he is the man to beat as we kick off the second half of the season. It's Martin, your sprint winner at Silverstone.
Well, the British Grand Prix so far in 2026 has been all about Aprilia. The factory RSGP, the fastest motorcycle ever to lap around this iconic British Grand Prix venue. Jorge Martin securing pole position, and for the first time in their history, Aprilia lock out the sprint top three. Gold to Jorge Martin, another silver medal around the neck of Ayagura, keeping himself firmly in the hunt in second place in the overall standings. And Marco Bezzecchi, the hero of the hour, completing that milestone rostrum for the Nuwali factory. As Ducati takes defeat for the very first time in a sprint at Silverstone. And let's be perfectly frank about it, they never got close to making it 4 out of 4. Alex Marquez was their leading contender, the two-time sprint winner here at the British Grand Prix, taking the checker flag in 4th place, but he was nigh on 7 seconds back of Jorge Martin. All smiles from the Martinator, all smiles from Aprilia as we get set for the British Grand Prix day tomorrow here. 20 laps, the world's best riders. It'll be lights out at 1 p.m. local time here in the United Kingdom for the Premier Class. Slightly revised race schedule tomorrow. We'll see the Moto2 field get the race action underway at 11:15 a.m. local time. Moto2 pack running over 17 laps. We hope we get another classic Moto2 scrap like it was here last year. But in MotoGP, it is all about a sprint Saturday to remember for Aprilia and Jorge Martin.
Aprilia locking out the sprint podium, the top two in the World Championship, 1 and 2, with Jorge Martin beating Ayagura. Marco Bezzecchi going through the physical barrier today to take third. Alex Marquez, the one Ducati rider to limit the damage, fourth. Ahead of Fabio Gian Antonio, Pedro Acosta, Joan Mir and Frankie Morbidelli all passing Marc Marquez late on, relegating the defending champion to 9th place and just 1 World Championship point. So here's what it all means. It's now 31 points covering the top 5, with Jorge Martin 17 ahead of Ayagura. The big change today, Marco Bezzecchi leapfrogs Marc Marquez and back into 3rd place. They're 27 and 29 respectively away from Jorge Martin. Raul Fernandez, well, he drops further back after failing to score today. He crashed out of 6th place. He now trails Jorge Martin by 61 points. Good day in the Constructors' Championship for Aprilia. Having locked out the podium, they extend their lead over Ducati now to 17 points. And in the team standings, Aprilia Racing with a 1st and a 3rd today stretch their advantage over Trackhouse back out to 51 points. some highlights. Jorge Martin will enjoy watching these back. Led from the start to the finish as he won the drag race turn 1 ahead of the Trackhouse Aprilis. Further back, there was all sorts of battling going on. Bezzecchi and Marc Marquez making contact, having both passed Raul Fernandez in the first couple of corners. And on the attack early on was the defending champion, taking fourth from Bezzecchi. Gian Antonio was also trying to attack in the early stages. Of course, at this point, we weren't aware just how much trouble Ducati would be in the latter stages. Digia unsuccessful in taking second from Agura. Raul Fernandez, though, on the second of the Trackhouse Aprilia, unable to convert his front row start into sprint success as he crashed out of 6th. But it was here where Marc Marquez's problems began to surface. A complete lack of rear grip saw him surrender third place to Marco Bezzecchi. Fourth at that point, third for Bezzecchi came when he passed Babbage and Antonio up the inside into Kops. Pedro Costa was next along to have a go at Marc Marquez, who'd lost already 5th to his brother by this stage. Costa taking 6th as Marc Marquez continued to reverse down the points positions. Alex Marquez, as mentioned, the one Ducati rider who was somewhat able to limit the damage today as he took 4th from Gian Antonio. But on a day where Aprilia really showed their strength, Jorge Martin did the same. The 89 searching for a second MotoGP title this year. A very small step, but it is a step in the right direction for him as he takes sprint win, number 3 of the season, and he extends his World Championship lead over second placed Agura today out to 17 points.
For the reigning world champion, pole position to the sprint victory. What a return to action.
Marc Marquez, he has completely dominated this sprint.
Welcome to the Grand Prix of Hungary. Welcome to the Balaton Park circuit. Marc Marquez taking his 76th MotoGP pole position.
The rider on pole position is the rider to beat.
So here we go then. It's lights out and racing in MotoGP here in the Grand Prix of Hungary. Big wheel spin there for Marc Marquez as he got off the line. Is he going to try and tip it out the brakes with Pedro Acosta on the run into the first corner? Sideways goes Acosta and Jorge Martin out of the shape, out of control. Aldeguer has been cleaned out. The top 3 in the World Championship are out of this Grand Prix.
Bezzecchi, Aldeguer, Gian Antonio and Fernandez out.
At the front then, Marc Marquez has a quarter of a second lead over Pedro Acosta.
Bagnaia has just cruised through all the chaos up in the 3rd place. Marini sails wide, so he's given up 4th now to Jack Miller.
Acosta's lunging on the inside of Marc Marquez. Pedro Acosta then leads here in Balaton for the 3rd time.
Acosta's getting plenty of grip out of that soft rear tyre as Marc Marquez banking on that medium rear being the better long-term pick.
Clearly, the incident at turn 1 is under investigation. Marco Bezzecchi then, that's going to be super frustrating for Bez. Oh, look at that, Mir was almost down. No surprise there, we said that Anea's going to likely cop a long lap penalty.
Now Now Agura's going on the attack. He's now up the inside of Juan Mir.
Marc Marquez is starting to pound some serious pressure on Acosta here. He's all over the rear tyre of Acosta into 9 and 10. The chicane we go. Marc Marquez leads. Sideways there, wasn't he? Sideways on the brakes was Marc Marquez. Left the door open. Acosta barges his way through. Here comes Marquez and now attacking on the brakes once again. Chess on the brakes. Oh, it's a block pass from Marquez. They're squeezing each other. Are they rubbing shoulders with each other? Big contact, wasn't there? This is the battle we have been waiting for. But Acosta versus Marquez is on. Is this going to be another time he's going to attack? It is. So this is successive laps. Then went to 93. Has sent it on the inside of Acosta. He'll just run Acosta out to the paintwork. That was crucial. He got his tactics spot on there, didn't he? Number 93, Marc Marquez. He is back at the front, and now already he has got daylight between himself and Acosta. This battle continues to rage between Marini and Agura.
Marini once again held the inside of the racetrack, but then of course goes across the race line. Agura lets the brakes off, desperately trying to get to the apex first, and this time he's able to park it in front of Luca Marini.
The reigning world champion with just one corner left. Marc Marquez has had a blast at Balaton Park once again. He wins in Hungary to make it 100 wins for one very special rider, one very special talent. Pedro Acosta takes second place. Pecco Bagnaia is on the podium for the third race in succession. The factory Ducati team reach a century of wins. This World Championship defence is now well and truly up and running. We are at majestic Mugello once again. For Raul Fernandez, who wins the Tiso sprint here in Mugello. It's his first gold medal after a golden performance by the Trackhouse Aprilia rider. Good afternoon and welcome one and all to the Brembo Grand Prix of Italy.